Greetings, and welcome to The Thirsty Mage, the podcast where you get to drink a pint and listen to a bunch of dudes talk about RPGs. This week, we're going to be taking a look back at the RPG scene on Switch since its inception 20 months ago. We'll discuss what we've liked so far, some of our disappointments, and lead into a talk about what we expect to see in the coming future. But first, let's take a look at who we got on the pod tonight. As always, I'm your host, David Lloyd, and joining us is fresh off his first 10 out of 10 review for the game Grease, NWR contributor and Thirsty Mage regular, Mr. Jordan Rudick.
Hi, David. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Good. Thanks for plugging the Grease review. Everyone should go to NintendoWorldReport.com and check that out.
Doesn't it stay like a little bit in, like, hey, if maybe you don't want to read too much more, you don't want to spoil things?
Yeah, that's what I did a review myself for a channel, and that's essentially what my review was.
It's like, just stop.
It's good. I'm not going to tell you anything about it. Just watch the first 5 minutes and then go buy it.
Yeah, really. I mean, just look at it, listen to the music for a little bit, and don't read anything. There's no need to. Like, it's so hard to. You don't want to spoil anything. You don't want to give anything away. But
all the words after this sentence are completely superfluous.
That's right. It's one of those games where I do want people to just look at the score and then go and get it.
Yeah, well, and then like that intro, just that one intro right at the beginning where she's falling and the music's playing. That should win you right there.
Yeah, and that's why I tried to start the video review with that. I just started with that music. I didn't even do the NWR kind of jingle that plays for the YouTube video. Just started with like 30 seconds, 20 seconds of that music. Like, that should be enough. Stop the video here. Go get it.
Exactly. And yet, tonight we also come full circle. He was here for the inaugural episode, and now he's back to finish off 2018. RFN host, Mr. James Jones.
Hi. I did an episode in the middle somewhere, I think. I don't know, that one was a blur. There's like a Persona episode that may still be being recorded right now.
Yeah, it's probably being reviewed by Apple to see if we've used up too much of their data plan or not.
It's taken me most of 2018 just to get through that episode. It's so long.
Well, I got bad news. We're still recording it, so it's being made as you listen.
Part 2.
Yeah.
Why does my audio length say hour 14 to infinity? That's weird. Is this a live stream?
You can't stop recording. You can't stop recording until Persona 5 comes to Switch next year, or whenever the hell it does.
Oh, God.
I don't know. I almost hope it doesn't.
I'm not particularly psyched one way or another. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it does, then some stuff probably happened, which will be interesting. But yeah, it is Joker from Persona Q2, a game that's not out in 90% of the world. Thanks, thanks Contracts. You're the best.
Well, before we get too far into it, we should see who's drinking tonight. I know I am. Maybe we'll start with Jordan to see if he's got anything special tonight, any spiked eggnog or something like that.
Yeah, close. You're right that it is something slightly festive. I've got a kind of a hot apple cider drink. I've been looking all over the city to find they come in like little pouches, it's just like a powdered sugar kind of thing. Been looking over the city to find them, and I finally found them. We went grocery shopping just for the podcast, and I finally found a box of them. So I bought a couple boxes. So I'm good for at least until January, it looks like.
That's good. And from the sound of James' voice, it sounds like he could use a little cognac.
I forgot the etiquette of the show, where there's a seeming reliance on alcohol to make it move. And so, as a consequence, I have no pints to drink. I only have scotch or rum or bourbon or whiskey or vodka.
That's perfectly fine.
I could just go get something later. We'll be fine.
You sound, James, like you should be having a hot toddy or something like that. Or maybe you're not even that sick. So
I sound worse than I am, which is fun. No, I don't have anything. I'm in my study right now, so I don't have direct access to alcohol. Because I didn't think I was going to have to listen to John today, so I don't need to have the alcohol in hand.
That's right.
We record the podcast. Yeah, I've got my whiskey.
Yeah, it'd be like any other episode on the Thirsty Mage, where I'm usually the only one drinking anyway. So, what I'm having tonight is it's a double Abbey Belgian. It's kind of a go-to drink for me. This one in particular is from Mons, an Abbey style beer inspired by the Belgian city of Mons. Got a special brewmaster. Yeah, it's good. It's a nice 8%. It's kind of a darker red, and I'm enjoying it. I don't know where you guys can get it, because I got it up here in Canada. But I mean, if you find it, it's worth getting.
What was the name again, David? Just in case I'm at the liquor store, have a look there.
It's called Mons Double Abbey.
Mondstable Abbey. Okay.
And the
cool.
brewmaster is Jean-Louis Marcoux. And it's in like a wine sized bottle, and it's also 8%. So it's it's got a kick.
So one of us isn't making it to the end of the podcast.
One of us might not make it through the Xenoblade 2 Octopath battle or debate or whatever the hell we want to call it.
You know, I'm on day 5 of my vacation. I have no desire to fight anybody, so.
Sir, I think most of us. Maybe we'll start off with. We'll get to that discussion in a little bit, but maybe we'll start off with the general overview. So tonight's theme is that we're basically taking a look at the last 20 months. It's the end of the year, so we're deciding we're going to take a reflection on the RPG scene on Switch since its inception. Generally speaking, what do you guys think about the RPGs that we've been bestowed upon in the last 20 months?
As I said, there's been a handful of games that are really good. There's been a bunch of stuff that's just come from somewhere else and has washed up on Switch shores. You have things ranging from Ys 8 with its less than hilarious translation, unlike the first release that came where it was just a nightmare translation. So we have that. So like we have some degree of stuff has happened in that space. We have things that are, you know, the big tent poles we're going to talk about. And then we have the stuff that just shows up on the eShop apropos of nothing. The 18 games a month that Kemco releases that are all RPGs made in some toolkit designed by a caveman. Because I think they've got like 12 at this point or something obscene like that. And there's no way a person
I think I played about 10 of them.
There's no actual way a human being is making all of them. It cannot be. There's too many. It couldn't do it. So they're being auto-generated by a robot somewhere.
When I see those games on the eShop, auto-generated by a robot's pretty good, James. When I see those on the eShop, I keep thinking, it goes on sale at 10%, 20%, and I don't know what percentage the discount has to be for me to buy them. You know, there's some desire to buy them.
Just to know,
I want to punish myself or something. You know, it's I don't know, but
the question you have to ask yourself is, what's your time worth?
Yeah, no, exactly, right. Like I'm curious. I'm so curious how bad they are, or how pedestrian, how boring. I don't know. Like I just a fascination with those games.
Can we answer that question before we know how long this podcast ends up being? I once got in an argument with somebody because I was convinced that this Kemco game had already come out. And this is the kind of arguments that happen between recording sessions of RFN where it's just like, no, that game already came out. It had to have. There's no way this is a different game. And then I realized, no, there's like 10 of them. So welcome to this. This will never end. There's no escape.
And half of them use the word arc in them. Arc is either the first word or the second word or the third or however many.
Don't
but
think
it's
a series. It's just
it's not.
It's just stuff. I don't...
Because they all spell it differently, too. Sometimes it's ARC, ARCH, ARK. It doesn't matter, but...
I just
Have you had the pleasure of playing Yodanji?
No, that sounds like a nightmare.
I don't think I've even heard of that.
You could have just made that up. I mean, there's literally 1,000 games that I've never heard of on the eShop, except for when I'm streaming and just going through the eShop and laughing.
I think it's in the show notes here. Make up a game. Yodanji. Yodanji? What the hell? I don't even know what you said.
There's a review. It's in writing. I feel like the old axiom, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, but now I'm like at fool me 7 times. Like, whose fault is it now?
Glutton for punishment.
I mean,
is what it is.
Just because there's a review doesn't mean it's real. Like, I can do creative writing. It's fine.
I would have rather have made up an RPG.
Now Nintendo wants to give me a poll about this RPG I'm looking at on the eShop, and I have no desire to take a poll about this game. Thank you. I'm gonna give you 3 game titles, and one of them is made up. The other 2 are from the eShop right now.
Oh no!
And I want you to tell me which one's the one I made up. So the first one is Xenon Valkyrie Plus. It is an RPG with an anime girl holding a sword, doing weird cat ear poses, and I don't like any of this. One of them is called Job the Leprechaun, Job. It is a puzzle platformer game with, as you might guess, a leprechaun drawn really poorly, pulling another leprechaun from the background into the foreground. And your third choice is Cake Laboratory. It has a chef drawn maybe out of a thumb, staring at his own logo that reads Cake Factory. That's actually a Pop-Tart. While some cakes are stacked in the background precariously, and I think the top one might be made of cows. It is a puzzle game.
Now, I know Xenon Valkyrie Plus is a game.
No cheating.
And I believe are they all games? Are they all?
They are, in fact, all real games.
The only reason I remember two of those, I remember Cake Laboratory, I remember Xenon Valkyrie, is because they're on our kind of list of games to review, and no one's taken them yet.
No, shocking.
No one wants to play those games.
Shocking.
Yeah, I know, right? I didn't know about that Job the leprechaun.
I guess it is Job, but I'm just gonna have it be Job.
Is it Job? I don't know. It looks like
it's got to be Job.
Gob?
It's Job, but I want it to be Job the leprechaun. Because what does that even mean? I don't care. Fuck it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the state of RPGs on Switch. There's lots of them. I'm not convinced some of them are even played by humans or made by humans, but there are some really good ones. They were probably made by humans.
Sometimes I wonder if there's some kind of contractual obligation that some of these providers need to just throw something on the eShop to keep their account with Nintendo or something.
No, they choose to do this. This is the thing that they did. What's interesting is, according to the eShop North America, there are 211 RPGs on Switch. This is a lie. There's no way.
Oh, don't. Yeah, I did that before the podcast too. I looked at that list. I'm like, no, that's not right.
But
half of these are not RPGs.
So you're saying there's a disconnect between quantity and quality? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying there's a disconnect between what it is and what is not an RPG. For example, I don't know, Detroit, obviously an RPG.
Yeah, I saw that today too. I couldn't believe it. What was the Australian Game Awards or something
but only
like that?
in Australia. Ark Survival.
Technically, you do play a role.
Ark Survival Evolved, according to Nintendo, is an RPG. Now,
there's another Ark title for it.
Well, yeah, well, that one apparently runs at
I know
10 frames a second or some bullshit.
Yeah. Poor John who had to review it.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like that'd be a lot of fun.
One of the themes I saw this year was there was a ton of roguelike that stuck in RPG elements. The phrase with RPG elements. So there, I'm sure half or more of those are roguelikes with RPG elements.
Yeah, it's definitely the year or maybe this is going to be the trend going forward, that everything is adding RPG elements to it, right? Everyone wants to see stats and progression and numbers and things like that. So, I mean, I told you I was playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, right? The Assassin's Creed games have gone really heavy into the RPG side, right? It's all about stats and tinkering with your weapons and leveling up and stuff like that.
Anything to make the game take longer, so you don't sell it in that first week when they make all their money. And if you really think I'm joking, like a lot of games seem to just go on sale after about a month because they've already got their big sales out.
Yeah, or if you're Fallout 76, you go on sale like the day after release.
God, if you
for like half price.
You pre-ordered that, why would you do that?
Yeah,
don't do that.
Oh, the biggest mistake. Yeah.
Revenant Dogma, Soul Blight, and Valathrian Arc: A Hero's Story. All of these are real games.
David, didn't you review Soul Blight?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. I seem to remember that being a particularly unappealing game.
It was funny. I wanted to throw up after playing the game, and only half because it gave me motion sickness.
Right. Oh, man.
My favorite part is that, generally speaking, the titles just line up right on the eShop. But there's one situation, because those bastards over at Navilla Software Japan put out a game called Gaokao Love 100 Days with no spaces in it, just periods. And the eShop website does not know how to handle this, so it just bleeds over into Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torn of the Golden Country.
Oh, gosh.
The eShop is a nightmare, and welcome to it.
It is a nightmare, yeah. Well, I think we're all hoping that something gets done to the eShop next year. We'll see.
Oh, I want it to get worse. Make it
They're
worse.
making money.
Can it get worse?
Yes.
Is that possible?
Yes, I used the Wii Shop channel. It can get worse.
Yeah, okay. But the music was so good, though.
It's true, especially when you were told you had to leave because you didn't have space. And then you had to go navigate everything again. And the fact that it moved the confirm prompt on the credit card to opposite sides of the screen, so you almost always canceled the first time. So you had to re-enter it all again.
So good.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a great experience.
Yeah. I mean, quantity versus quality of games on the Switch is, I mean, we could talk about that for hours, right? Like that's a huge kind of issue, curation, just, we already know there's so many games, we can't even review them all. It's not possible. But in terms of RPG content on the Switch, I think we've been pretty lucky that in the first 2 years of the console's life, we've had a lot of great games, first-party stuff, third-party ports of games have been really good. Diablo 3 port was really good, Skyrim, Dark Souls. So a lot of good third-party stuff that's come to the Switch, big games. The independent scene is really, really strong, and we're going to talk about a few of them. Golf Story was definitely one of my highlights in the first year. Then this year we had Undertale and Moonlighter, which are really special games too, I think. So there's definitely a huge quantity of games overall, and maybe an inflated total of RPGs on the Switch too. But I think we have gotten a lot of quality. You just kind of have to dig around a little bit. It's certainly there.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had and I want to thank everyone that filled out the survey. We had a good reply goings and gave us a lot of data, and we're just going to go through essentially what the fan base thinks of the RPGs over the past 20 months. And one of the main themes is that it seems that Xenoblade and Octopath were two of the more popular throughout the year, or over the last 20 months. So maybe we'll just quickly go through the different questions that we asked, give the answers of what the general public thought, and maybe just throw in our 2 cents of what our answers were. So starting with the design, the art direction. Essentially, everybody was kind of 50-50 between Xenoblade and Octopath. I mean, for Octopath, it kind of seemed like one of those either you loved it or you hate it kind of situations. I kind of heard differing opinions on how people like that. I mean, it's unique. I'll say that.
I mean, if you have an affinity for like 16-bit games, right? Like if you're remembering Final Fantasy 4 and 6 especially, and you're kind of longing for that look. We don't get a ton of games that look like that anymore. And, the character sprites, especially in Octopath, really, really copied, that style for sure. So, I think Xenoblade maybe overall, it's such a huge game, the world's a really, beautiful to look at. But, Octopath, I wasn't turned off by, some of the, lighting effects and things like that. That was fine to me. It was unique. It was different. I kind of gravitated towards that a little bit more.
I think what we see on, at least in the style and presentation stuff, is that's really where you have Octopath kind of asserting itself. Like that's what that game was like when it was sold. Like the trailer they cut together the first time was really just like, look at this style we've put together. And that was really it. And I think there are mechanical issues. I mean, I haven't played it, but talking to a number of people who have, I think there are mechanical concerns in that game that tend to be where the game tried to do stuff that was like its own idea, if that makes sense. And so as a consequence, that stuff's divisive to some people. But I think stylistically, that game's always gonna spec out well in the kind of format of the survey that you've put together. I don't remember what I put down because I took the survey like a monster. I'm sure it was something outrageous. But the one thing I would say about Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and by extension, Torn of the Golden Country, is that while the game does have some moments of like kind of amazing looking stuff, in many ways it's significantly more grounded than any of its two predecessors. Or even other things from Monolith Soft. Like there are moments where the game is striking. The first time you set foot in Araya's core, and you see the effectively they're cherry blossom trees. They just happen to also glow. Like that's one of the first times the game really confronts you with a massive splash of color, and that's like 14 hours into the game. Whereas the other two games do that very quickly, and it doesn't happen a ton.
Yeah, and there was some division on the character choices of Sato, and how he wanted the characters to look compared to, say, the Nomura design characters. So,
well, I didn't mind the characters so much.
I don't mind. I know I have talked to people who are turned off by how sexualized the characters were. I mean, to me, it's like it's just that's Japan. Like it didn't seem that extreme to me, but I can see where other people would see it. But it didn't bother me. I still thought the design was I
thought there were a couple where they went too far. I mean, mostly Rex's chaps. Like, that's not appropriate. Put that boy in proper pants, please. That we don't need that in our games. That's smut. But I think that's mostly with the Blades, and for the most part, like, obviously the Blades are core characters, and I know Mithra, Pyra stuff are the two big in the party that kind of get it. But I ended up not getting a lot of the hypersexualized Blades right out. I got Gort instead, who has about 17 abs. So it's like, well, that's a different thing altogether. But I really kind of locked into the characters and their personality. I thought they did a good job matching personality with physical appearance. You have Zeke and Pandoria, who are the textbook examples of they both look like idiots. And guess what? Yeah. Guess what's going on? They're both dumb meatheads.
Well, and I played most of the game with I can't think of her name now, but it was like the young girl who did the electricity.
Yeah,
I'm blanking on the name.
Yeah, I can see her. Yeah, she's a child, and she's dressed like a child, and it's fine. I had one that I had the thing that looks like the character from what's that Disney superhero, Big Hero 6. And then I had the girl who has a polar bear. It's like, well, these aren't. I was like, these aren't that sexualized. And then later I got the girl who has dragons but also exposed breasts, and I'm like, okay, yep, here we are. She's a giant dragon cannon with boobs.
Yeah. And then there's the girl that has, like, I think the arms are like coming out of portals or whatever, and she's a soldier and is only wearing a bikini.
Yeah, no, we've arrived. Honestly, some of that stuff reminded me of what is that fighting game that came out? I gotta think of the characters in it.
SNK Heroines?
No. Skullgirls.
Yeah.
Some of the characters like Skullgirls fighters. It was a bit ridiculous. So yeah, I can see why appearance would turn some people off in that game. I get it. Considering some of the Blades look like Big Band has come across the screen, is ready to fight, whatever. But I think visually the game is nice, but it doesn't try to blow you out of the water the same way that the original Xenoblade Chronicles did, where I think to a certain degree they were just trying to show off, look what we can do on Wii. And then Xenoblade X, where I think they just kind of were so interested in building a giant damn world, and then they had to put stuff in it. And so that was basically the core focus of the game, was how do you create HD assets? How do you put them in a world? How do you build a world around those assets? Whereas Xenoblade 2, they're really trying to move their story along. And there are definitely places that are striking and interesting to look at, but it's much less of a we're going to go all out thing, at least from my position.
No, I'd agree with that. In the music category, we kind of have the same result, where Xeno and Octopath kind of split the votes 50-50 for the most part. And
I was listening to the two soundtracks, this week, and especially just before we hopped on here. And man, it is truly a 1A, 1B scenario. They're both excellent soundtracks for sure. Top to bottom, honestly. There's not really many bad, if any, bad tracks on those soundtracks. I think the battle themes, the boss themes are really, really good. I gave a slight edge to Octopath. Maybe I kind of prefer the lighter, more piano orchestral sounds there as opposed to the rock kind of and metal influences in Xenoblade. But what I really like about Octopath, and I wanted to bring this up, is it does a really good job of fitting the themes to the characters and the places. So, the theme for the scholar is going to sound kind of, mysterious and, like Sherlock Holmes and something like that. Or the theme for the hunter is going to be more kind of woodsy and, remind you of the outdoors and things like that. So I really like how Octopath did a great job of linking music to character design and kind of it almost fills in the gaps of who the characters are, just listening to those themes as the characters, certain things happen to them or certain story beats occur, something like that. So, the music is definitely great in both games. I'm going to give a shout out to something here. I just found this before we hopped on. On YouTube, a fellow named, I think it's Gino Dennis, in July, he posted all these, it's my favorite part of the Octopath soundtrack. He posted all these cuts of, it's a character theme or a character track, and then when it blends into the boss battle theme. So, for example, one I was listening to just before, it's called Hannet Boss Battle 2, and it goes from her theme, which is called For Master, and then it combines it with, or leads into Decisive Battle 2, which is one of the common battle themes in the game. And so there's this really great transition that happens in the music between one theme and then the boss battle theme that happens. And it just gave me goosebumps, shivers every time I heard that transition. And there's a lot of bosses in the game, so you hear it pretty often, but I always look forward to that. And, it's for that reason, that kind of really clever blending of the two tracks, that I would give Octopath just a slight edge in terms of music quality.
In fact, a certain individual wrote us an email about this. I went on a, we'll call it like James's mass declarations day, where he just decided that all games needed to be scored by Mitsuda. And this wasn't like an option. This was like, no, if you're making a game, you call him. He can score every game. He will do it. Yeah. He will do it. He's a crazy person. Although he actually was more supervisory in Xenoblade 2. There are a lot of songs in that game I like a lot, but I actually thought that in the Torna expansion actually is better for me for some reason. I think they went and made it jazzier, which I kind of liked. But of course, not having played Octopath, I really can't speak too much on its soundtrack, because all I've heard, of course, was without context. And that matters a lot into some of this music. Not always, but sometimes context can really make a song resonate better. Thing with Xenoblade is just there is a whole crap ton of music.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, like haven't played, like I didn't finish Octopath because it's not on my high list, but I don't know how you vote against Mitsuda on music. For me, I think part of it though is that we kind of have I have the same taste in music as he does. Like I'm a big fan of the Irish Celtic scene too. So when he's like pulling bands out of Ireland to do his stuff, like I'm with you. Like it's
I love that story of like there's this Celtic band I've wanted to work with for years, but I've never had the chance. And I'm like, fuck you, you haven't had the chance. Every song you make, every game you make is Celtic. What? You've had 30 years of chance.
And they just happen to be in Japan the day he decides maybe we should call these guys up.
Yeah, they were just hanging out. It was fine. Like, what? Like, this is the worst story I've ever heard. You can lie to me, but at least make the lie entertaining. This is like, no, we definitely didn't spend 5 years negotiating with them or something like that. Come on.
Yeah. So, but like you said, they're both great. So it's again another 1A 1B, I would say. So the next question we had was. Now this one was interesting to me because I asked, what you thought the best cast was, and I was certain that it would again be another 50-50 split with Xeno and Octopath, but the majority of the votes were either Xenoblade 2, Torna, or Undertale. And really? Octopath didn't really. I think it might have got a couple, but it was certainly not up there.
I can see that though, because a lot of times those kinds of questions, people start thinking how you worded it. People think about the interactions, and
that's the thing with Octopath is there's next to no actual overlay of this. Like it's 8 individual stories, and it's not like Xenoblade where it's like a group of people growing together. Like these people, like Octopath, they were growing. like congruently to each other. Like it wasn't together. It was individually, but in a group. Like, so it was.
I mean, like you said, James, it's about the interactions, and in Xenoblade 2, you're constantly interacting with the members in your party, right? In Octopath, there isn't. You're doing short stories, 8 separate short stories, and so you're kind of following each character maybe a little bit deeply. But because there's no interaction, it's hard to say that there's a kind of a cohesive cast,
Right.
There's 8 very separate stories, 8 very separate characters, but because there's no interactions, no relationships, you don't necessarily they're not as human, they're not humanized as much, right? They're forming relationships with characters in their stories, but not the characters you're playing as. So all of their relationships that you're seeing, it's all with NPCs. And because of that, I think it's hard for the player to relate to those characters as much, right? You're kind of following them on their journey, but you're not really, but not necessarily a part of it as much, right? But in Xenoblade 2, you're guiding these characters, you're choosing who's in your party, you're seeing all these interactions and cutscenes especially, right? Cutscenes that are voiced and give us, a lot more flavor, those kind of things that help kind of bond you to the characters a little bit more. That doesn't happen in Octopath.
They become multi-dimensional. In Octopath, they are a character out to settle whatever their individualized story is. But because they're all semi-independent, they don't get to mix their individual motivations around each other. You don't get to see how they evolve, with exposure to the others. Honestly, the cast in Torna isn't as good as the main game, but it's a lot smaller, so you get to see more. You get to see everybody interact with everybody.
Do you think it has anything to do with the length? Like, Torna is so much shorter than the base game is, right? Like,
it does.
Xenoblade 2, 100 hours or something like that, and you're spending so much more time. There's so much more content with these characters.
They evolve more. The characters in Torna, with the exception of Laura, are pretty much done. One of them's already a monarch. The other one is already basically founded a splinter army and is involved in like military activity. Like they're settled adults, and so they don't really get a lot of room to evolve. Like they're kind of already set in their ways. But because it's tight, and this actually weirdly enough happened with the last time they made a direct sequel to a game, they being Monolith Soft, with Baten Kaitos Origins, where the Baten Kaitos, I think, has 7 party members, and then you can have 3 at any given moment. Baten Kaitos Origins has 3, and you have 3 at any given moment, and that is the whole party, and you get them all pretty quick. And so, although that game is shorter than its predecessor, those 3 talk constantly, and so you get a good feel for who they are relative to one another. I think in the original Xenoblade 2 versus the expansion, the characters like Nia don't have a counterpart in Xenoblade 2.
Right.
Nia is probably my favorite character of the set if you remove Zeke and Pandoria, who are just weird like Team Rocket caricatures. But at the same time, I love them. They are my special children, and I want them to be happy.
They're hilarious too. They have really good dialogue, really good banter. Their relationship is excellent. I'm kind of with you there with Nia. I really like her, and she seems to grow a lot. She
more than
develops
anybody
as a character. Yeah, for sure.
Like Rex kind of stays his happy-go-lucky idiot. He just becomes more determined. Nia goes through a couple different character arcs, which is like there's a twist the knife moment in that, but it's fine. Also, she's involved in the way to most crash the game, which is beautiful. It's fantastic.
Well, and she's actually the answer to one of the questions coming up here too for me for best
that's
RPG
not surprising.
So I'll move. So battle system, Octopath was the clear winner on that one.
Yeah,
and I have to agree. Like of Octopath, the thing I enjoyed the most was the combat system.
Yeah, that's it's got to be. I've said this before. I think it's the best Japanese role-playing game battle system I've ever played. it's just so clever that it, rather than hiding all this information, it gives you a lot of the information, right? You're not looking for weak points that are hidden. Instead, it tells you how many weak points there are. And then as you hit the weak points, it kind of unlocks it and it shows you, okay, fire is a weakness of this enemy. Keep hitting it with fire every time you need to bring its shield down. And bringing the shield down gives you another kind of mini objective in the battle. So there's so many little things that are happening. You're trying to uncover their weaknesses. You're trying to break their shields. You're watching out for certain attacks that, maybe every 3 or 4 turns they're going to do this attack. Do you defend? What do you do? Like Bravely Default, you can stack up charges. It's a really fun, engaging battle system. I never felt like and this is different. I know some people had to grind significantly in the game. I never did. But I never felt like the battle system was a chore in that game. We play so many role-playing games where you get into random encounters and you're like, oh man, this is brutal. Same thing with Pokemon. Pokemon removing those random encounters, or random battles, I should say. I never felt like when I got into random battles in Octopath that this was going to be boring or terrible or, man, I wish these would just end. Because every battle was fun. It was a fun part of the gameplay when sometimes it can be a chore, especially with, when you're fighting lesser enemies or something like that. So, yeah, really clever battle system, awesome music. Yeah, I can't say enough about how much I appreciate that battle system and how it's almost kind of spoiled me for, other games going forward. I've been playing... I just finished Phantasy Star. It's on the Sega Aegis game that just came to Switch, and man, you go back to something that's really just meat and potatoes, turn-based combat, and you compare it to Octopath, and yeah, it's really night and day.
Yeah, it's like they took a blend of a bunch of different other games battle systems, took the best of a bunch of other battle systems, because the breaks remind me of Radiant Historia.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And then the charging is like Bravely Default, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, it's really good. I mean, I would love to see more JRPGs make use of that battle system. I hope that if there's an Octopath sequel, they keep that one or iterate on it a little bit. But yeah, truly an excellent role playing game battle system. And
for our next topic, it was best character, and there is absolutely no consensus for the most part. The only real trend was that it was just a hot mess of Xenoblade characters. It seemed like everybody had their favorite. So that was essentially take your pick, and that's what people seem to like. Which makes sense because, like you said, I think Xenoblade did a very good job of evolving their characters and making you actually feel something for them and care about what happened to them, and gave them character, they had personalities, there.
I think the other part is it made them feel like they cared for each other as well, and not sort of in that amorphous "I'll fight for my friends" bullshit, but different characters in the party had different relationships with each other, and so you got to see that on full display. I joked, Zeke and Pandoria are my special little children who need all the help in the world, because God, do they ever? Because they're both idiots. They're both delightful idiots. But they go through 2 distinct progressions. One where you get the realization that they're not quite so stupid, and maybe this is a little bit of an act. Which then Zeke reminds he really is an idiot. He's actually a moron. But that there's the second arc of you realize that they're both actually kind of weirdly into each other, and neither of them is mentally mature enough to handle it. And so you basically get to see everyone else reacting to them, which is probably why they're my favorite. But they run into the problem with Nia, where there's so many scenes of her just in the background looking at the camera going, I have to deal with these idiots. There's at least 3 scenes in the game where the camera just pans to her and she's like, what the hell's wrong with you? It doesn't say anything. She's just there for a reaction shot, and then they cut back to whatever dumb thing is happening.
I think Nia's head was in her palm for the majority of Xenoblade 2.
There's a scene where Tora is trying to teach Pyra how to be cute, although he uses whatever dumb word He uses whatever stupid word he's made up to describe cute. I can't remember what it was. And at least twice during it, you can just see Nia in the background. She's not even in the scene. She's just kind of there. She's mise en scène, essentially. And she just looks like, I can't fucking believe this is happening in front of me right now. And eventually she says something, and it's like, yeah, thank you for saying what all of us are feeling when the writers subjected us to this miserable scene.
It's just to build our love for Nia, I think.
It's like, everyone here hates this, and you're hating this right with us, so thank you. Yeah. Did anybody vote for Tora? I need to know.
There was one. There was one vote for Tora.
Hunt that person down.
Yeah, I found, and I normally like the Nopon characters in the Xenoblade games, but he was just a little bit too much. Just kind of found him annoying. Like he's not. I liked Riki a lot more from obviously from the first game, and then who's the guy in Xenoblade X?
Tatsu. Cooking Tatsu.
Gosh, yeah. Like he's terrible, but he's so funny though. Like,
but he's not around that much, which is the.
No, he's not. He's not. But yeah, Tora, I just didn't get it as much.
Poppy, actually, now that I think about it, though, I kind of adore Poppy.
Yeah, I like Poppy.
Because as she gets older, and I'm using quotes for that, she becomes increasingly off-put by the fact that Tora is a disaster of a creature. Yeah. And then by the end, she's basically just, like, picked up weird, like, dominance traits over her that are way too sexual for what this game is pushing. But she's not putting up with him anymore. And it's upsetting, and he's into it, and I don't like any of it. But she probably gets the two most emotional scenes, well, two of the three. And considering that she's the only non-living thing there, the writers did a really good job trying to live in her.
Yeah, just one more thing. There's something about, when you spend 100 hours with these characters, like you do, like, I mean, we mentioned in the cast, of course, but you get to know them, you get to see these different scenes with them, and I don't know, it was really easy to form attachments to these characters. You didn't feel like you were spending too much time with them, or that that they overstayed their welcome. I never felt like that. I felt like each character got a good amount of screen time and characterization and development, and maybe some in different ways, but even a character like Morag, who might come off as kind of maybe boring or standoffish or something, Mithra too, but they have really good lines, really good scenes that humanize them, and so a lot of great characters in that game for sure.
You get to fill in, you get enough content about them that you can fill in the blanks around their personality that the game doesn't give you. That you can sort of like put together the rest. I mean, you mentioned Morag, who probably has the least scenes of any of the cast members. Yeah, which is by design, by her own personal like, I don't want to be the center of attention kind of thing.
Sure.
She gets two. One where somebody accounts to her that Zeke might actually be a appropriate husband to consider, and Zeke's down. She very much is not. But she handles it in a very her sort of way. And then you have the infamous hot tub scene, or the hot spring scene.
It's really, really good.
Where you get to see Tora be a complete train wreck of a disaster. And you actually get to see her flustered about it because Tora is too much of a train wreck for her to handle.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, well, no, they did it. There she is. What non-Xenoblade characters got votes, out of curiosity?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too. I was hoping that some of the Undertale characters might have got mentioned because they're really good too.
Yeah, like Sans and Papyrus.
Papyrus, yeah, of course.
Yeah, definitely got picks. The survey, we could talk about. So for villains, it was kind of the same thing where there was really no consistent single person that stood out. There were a bunch of votes for different people. I mean, I think for me, I think Jin might be my favorite villain on the Switch. I mean, I guess he's technically the villain, I guess, but
yeah, I mean
he is a villain for sure.
People are dead as a consequence of Jin. He is not a good guy. I don't know that I've got a villain I absolutely love. We're getting into some spoilers here. I revile Amalthus. And here's the thing, like, I don't think they actually do a great job telling his backstory. I feel like they give you all the pieces, but they give it to you in kind of a convoluted and tough to follow way. But I know distinctly when I saw him for the first time in Torn of the Golden Country, I immediately yelled at my TV, "Just kill that son of a bitch!"
Yeah.
Because I hated him so much. Which some of it is because like he's not a good character. Like in that game, he's actually pretty poor character altogether. Like his motivation is just effectively just nihilism, and that's kind of a weak motivation for a character. Because if you're nihilistic, you're not going to be pushed to do all the things he does. Like the dude works hard for his vision, but like his vision isn't the kind of vision that inspires someone to work hard. So he doesn't really make sense as a character. But man, do I hate him. So maybe if that's your only metric, then like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, just quickly to go back to the heroes. So I got Adam, Hanit, Nia, Lorna, Mithra, Pikachu, Zeke. I got one Tora. Rook from Banner Saga. So yeah, so it's a eclectic group there. For the best villains, we got Flowey, Amalthus. We got the more ordained soldiers in general.
I think that might have actually
That's
been
a really good one.
That might have been my answer to that question, actually.
Max Yards, Sans if you're the villain, Jin, Malos, and we did get one vote for James Jones as best RPG villain.
No, good. No, that's fine. Yeah, the more
how appropriate that we have him here.
More Ordained Soldiers had to have been mine because that would have been
really
quite
like
at the peak of my like bring back all of their dumb banter.
Yeah, I mean they're so diabolical and villainous that we had to cut their dialogue from the game.
Yeah, it's true. I do have a recording of a battle that I deliberately staged where I attracted as many like 5 different mobs, and the capture equipment started to freak out with the audio. It couldn't handle it. It was just too much stuff.
They can't have such a stand-up moment.
Well, I was getting like 7 or 8 see here's at the same time, but kind of in a round because I had like 13 or 14 more Ardanian soldiers running around. It was bad. It was really bad.
That could also be the best RPG moment, our next category.
It was pretty fun.
20 soldiers running around saying, "Don't forget me."
Yeah, but like they're all doing it. It's awful.
Yeah,
it's so bad.
It sounds really bad.
I might still have the audio, so...
Most of the votes were for Xeno stuff. I know for me, I think one of my favorites might have been when Nia slapped the crap out of Rex when he was getting all whiny about his odds of victory. Yeah. And she just slapping him around to knock some sense into him. But then, how do you beat the hot tub scene?
Easily.
And then when Zeke suggests that maybe Morag should wear high heels and a skirt, and she tells him to die in a fire.
Good.
Yeah, like that whole scene's a train wreck.
Or Tora thinks Morag has been a man the entire time.
Yes, because she wears pants. That's his metric. I think you can kind of go in the same game, but you go more serious. I think Nia's got a few that are super serious, where they kind of reveal what her story is, and then they reveal it to the rest of the cast what her story is.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually crying Poppy at the end. I think that's the like, oh, this game just kicked me right where it hurts kind of moment, because she's a robot. She's not supposed to be crying. No. And like she's clearly very upset. And then of course they flip it because the game had to have the happy weird ending that it has. That's very weird. That ending is very strange in a lot of ways. But in the moment when you're not sure if they're gonna pull it out, she has this moment where she has to be an adult when she very much isn't. That is kind of upsetting. Which I guess is why I liked it so much.
Yeah, I'd agree. Some of the other moments we have, someone voted for Rex finding the third Aegis sword. We've got Primrose Path and Octopath. What do we got here? The final battle with Flowey, which I agree. Like that.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's a really good final battle. Like in the when you're doing the what is it? When you're not killing anybody.
Pacifist.
The Pacifist ending.
I did that run too.
That's an incredible ending. Like, I was just surprised by that. The only thing
I think I voted for something like that. Like the Pacifist ending or the Pacifist run as a whole is really, really well done.
Yeah. I would almost want to disqualify it a bit though, just because it's on the Switch, I guess, but it's a port, so it's like a 2015 best RPG moment. But we'll allow it for now. So
yeah, I think a lot of people did play it for the first time on Switch though. Like it was on the top of the download chart on the Switch eShop for a while. So
yeah, well, that was my first full playthrough.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Next category we got was we asked everybody what they thought their favorite indie RPG was, and Golf Story was definitely number one. And I think it took about half the votes.
I'm happy to see that. James, did you play Golf Story?
I did.
Yeah. What did you think?
I liked it. I thought maybe sometimes it got a little too on the rail. I didn't feel like I ever really got to just do what I wanted to do, which is I just wanted to play some damn golf.
Yeah.
It did some of that, but I would have, I was comparing it to the Mario RPG sports games that came out on the GBA, where ultimately what it mattered was, can you play the sport well?
Yeah.
Whereas this had some of that, but a lot of it was like, okay, now go do this one random trick shot and everyone will be impressed and you'll get loads of money.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of side stuff that isn't like playing 9 or 18 holes of golf, right? It's throwing a frisbee, it's throwing a ball and hitting a turtle or something like that. A lot of side stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I think that's part of its charm for me is that, like if I want to go play a golf game, I can do that. But this is, it's quirky, it's charming, it's something, it's called Golf Story, but it's much more maybe story than golf. It's, I don't know. I really like that quirky side of it. I get, the comparisons to, the Mario Golf games with the RPG mechanics. But I think it really tried to differentiate itself from those as well, right? By maybe not just being about golf, but, there's other activities you can do too.
Sure. I think maybe I would have been a little more comfortable if that stuff was there, but not necessarily in the mainline path.
Yeah, it very much is. You have to do some of that stuff to progress. Maybe one of the funny exceptions would be Golf, which is kind of everywhere in that game seemingly, but you never really have to do it, I don't think.
Right. I think the mini golf is technically not in the mainline path. I think you can beat the game without it.
Right, yeah, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, coming in second is Undertale. Now, I think had Undertale, had this been the original release of Undertale, probably would have came in first, I would think. I think it lost.
Oh, for sure.
I'm thinking it lost votes just because it's a port, and a lot of people probably played it before, so they didn't pick it up on Switch. Because I would say Undertale would be my number one.
I mean, if Undertale was first coming to Switch in 2018, first coming out at all in 2018, I think it would be probably up there for best RPG, or not just being voted in any indie category. I think it would be a lot more prevalent in the other category for the votes too. I mean, it's a really, really special, unique game that everyone really should play.
Yeah, and then coming in third is Moonlighter.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to play this, and I'd like to, but David, I know you played through it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it might have got some recency votes though. It was good. Third, I don't know.
What would you put ahead of it though?
I guess that'll bring us to we might as well talk about a few of the RPGs. I enjoyed Ironcast. Now that is really old. That came out almost at the very beginning of the Switch. Okay. I really enjoyed Ironcast. And Victor Vran was pretty good too. I had played that before Diablo though, so
it's very similar to Diablo, right?
Yeah. So I don't I'd probably put Ironcast ahead of it. It's kind of tough because I feel like there's probably a bunch of indies that you could just replace any number of them as third. Yeah. I think I think Golf Story and Undertale kind of separate from the pack, and then there's a pack of really good.
For sure. Is Moonlighter an RPG in the way that some people call Zelda an RPG, or does it actually have like stats and leveling up, stuff like that?
No, it's closer to a Zelda RPG because it really is like playing Link to the Past, but with capitalism.
Yeah, and I think that it definitely deserves recognition for, again, being unique and combining different types of games like that. I think it's really cool. I just, when it came out, and I couldn't find time for it, but I will get to it maybe next year. It's funny. I was talking to someone, a buddy of mine earlier today about, people calling Zelda an RPG, and we mentioned Detroit, being voted best RPG, and at the Game Awards, Monster Hunter was best RPG, and yeah, it's funny, like this definition of RPGs, especially nowadays, seems so fluid, and I'm happy to consider Moonlighter an RPG if it has mechanics like that, but it sounded to me more like kind of a action adventure or an action sim or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I would put it in action adventure. Yeah. If I had to choose, if I had to narrow it down to one, I would say action adventure would be the more accurate genre. But I mean, there's obviously RPG elements in it because you can craft your own equipment and stuff. In like you said, the same way that Zelda is, though. So, yeah. And then for best overall RPG, again, it was a 50-50 split between Xenoblade 2 and Octopath.
Shocking.
Yeah, right.
Now, like for me, Xenoblade 2 was the very easy choice. I wouldn't. If somebody said, "What's the one RPG you should buy on Switch?" I would answer without hesitation, Xenoblade 2.
Yeah, I think it really depends what you're looking for, where you're maybe even where you're coming for. Right, Xenoblade 2 is very. It's more anime. It's more Japanese in that way.
Anime.
Whereas Octopath is more traditional nostalgia, 16-bit RPG style. So they're really, really different games. Of course, they're both Japanese role-playing games, but the combat's really different. The presentation, the design, it's hard. It's almost hard to compare them. And yeah, I think they're both deserving of that best RPG moniker for sure. They're both excellent games. Both 50 hours plus as well to see them through. And I really enjoyed Xenoblade 2. I mean, we're talking about it so much and the characters, and I miss them. I want to go back and, hopefully I'll get a chance to do that with, I want to pick up Torna, sometime soon. But, I mean, for me, it's Octopath. Again, it's a 1A, 1B situation. I was looking for something, that reminded me of Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy IV. I just played Final Fantasy IV on the DS. I played the DS version recently. I played Final Fantasy VI when I first got my Super Nintendo Classic. Like, I was ready for something like Octopath, and it really kind of slaked my thirst for 16-bit RPGs and style, and and then that battle system was just second to none.
Well, James, how about you take us into the break with what you think the best RPG or the if you could only have one.
Yeah, I mean, I spent way too much time with Xenoblade 2. Like, an alarming, I need to stop amount of time. To the point where I ran out of quests to run, and I was just wandering around trying to find them. And the horrible realization, the only ones I didn't have were blades I never pulled the gem from.
Yeah.
So while I don't necessarily think I've got a broad enough spectrum to say definitively this is the best, for me, it made a big impression on me in that period of the release window, and sort of filling out the calendar in the post Mario Odyssey into 2018. I guess for me it would be that one.
James, did you play the Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and X in the same way as Xenoblade 2? Like, you spent that much time in them as well, or was it different with the second one?
I spent a lot of time with one, but not I didn't feel the need to exhaust all the quests. Xenoblade X, I played a tremendous amount of.
Yeah.
To the point where I was grinding the characters I had never used to get their personal quests, and I think I got most of them. Mm-hmm. But it was just so slow to grind character affinity in Xenoblade X. It took forever. Of course, Xenoblade 2 has the same problem because there's affinity quests with the blades.
Oh, that's right.
And those take forever as well. But I was doing stuff to power up blades I had no intention of using, just to kind of spend time with the combat system and in the world, and just kind of messing around. But I mean, the other factor comes into what was there around to play it at the time. And after Xenoblade 2, it had kind of gotten quiet, and I had a lot of free time because it was the holidays.
Yeah, Xenoblade 2, I mean, that's one of the things that bothered me a little bit, was the kind of random pull, the gacha system of acquiring blades. Sitting there for hours just hoping you'll get a legendary one or a special one, and getting so many of the generic ones was a little bit of a turn off. I mean, I really liked the idea of the legendary blades and having some of them having their own quest lines and even cutscenes and stuff like that. I'd love to go back and explore some of those, but at the same time, I don't want to sit there hoping I randomly pull these legendary blades. I wish there were an easier way. And I think in some of the DLC they might have given more legendary crystals to unlock those or something, right? And that's good. At least it seems like there's an easier way to get them. But to have to build up your luck stat or some kind of stat so that you'd have a better chance of pulling those. Reminds me of like Diablo 2, where I need to increase my chance to find special items or something like that. So that turned me off a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved Xenoblade 2. But yeah, there are a few more small things there that bothered me a little bit about it. But yeah, I think they're both great games.
And before we go to break, I promised Casey that I would mention how great Eve's 8 is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know he wanted to talk about it.
He wanted to be on. He really loved it, and I said I would not promise that I would pump its tires, but I did promise that I would mention that he thought it was fantastic.
Did you play Ys 8, David?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did? Oh, okay.
I didn't play much. I think I was playing something else at the time. Ys 8 for me wasn't a review game. So priority was low, and you know what? I was actually playing The Lost Child at the same time, the other Nisa game there, and I was really enjoying that. It had a very Shin Megami Tensei feel to it. It was obviously like trying to capture that. Yeah. But I enjoyed that quite a bit, and then trying to play Ys 8 at the same time, it just wasn't. And this is a personal thing for me, but I'm not. Usually, the action RPGs are not my favorite RPGs.
Right.
So there was already a little bit of an uphill climb.
Yeah, I can speak to it a little bit because I did play it through. It was a good summer game, because it's set on a kind of deserted or you get shipwrecked on a kind of sunny island with you end up finding dinosaurs and all this other shit there. But I thought it was a really fun game. I was kind of in the same boat as you. I was kind of choosing between Lost Child and Ys 8, and I went with Ys. It's actually the first Ys game I've ever played. It is more of an action RPG. I got through most of the game kind of spinning or kind of spamming this spinning sword attack. I just kind of whirled around the island like the Tasmanian devil, kind of chopping everyone down that way. Even though there is kind of a weapon triangle that they try to use, I was able to kind of ignore it mostly. But what I really liked about Ys 8 is that it's one of those games where you're kind of building a town. You build a little settlement, and you find other people that were on the ship with you who were shipwrecked as well, and you got to find them and bring them back. And they have different specialties. One's a blacksmith, one can make clothes for you, one can make potions for you. And I always like that idea of kind of collecting a village or creating a village by finding people, getting to know them and stuff like that. So yeah, Ys 8 is a really fun game. Again, I think you have to be more into the action RPG series for sure, but I wouldn't put it in the best RPG on Switch category, but it is a fun game, and nice. It was a nice kind of summer distraction. It took me about 25-30 hours to get through it, I think.
Well, I imagine Casey will give you a nice hug for pumping its tires, because I sure as hell wasn't
there
gonna.
You go. So. Fair enough. Yeah, there you go, Casey. Hope you're happy, bud.
Exactly. Alrighty, well, let's take a little break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the future of RPGs on Switch. Go from there. Alrighty, and we're back, and we're going to be talking about the future of RPGs on Switch, and probably
they're all canceled. All of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Segment over.
That's okay, because the three of us are also non-Nintendo RPG players as well, so we're going to sneak in a little Nintendo talk too as we go along. But before we get into the future, I just want to mention a few other RPGs that were pretty fun on the Switch, but didn't really make it in our initial discussion. So there's Diablo 3 was a recent addition to the Switch lineup. It was fun. Dark Souls kind of got overshadowed by Diablo 3 to a certain degree.
Yeah, Dark Souls needed to come out at the same time that the remastered version came out for PS4 and Xbox and PC. Like the delay really hurt it. I think it slipped into a maybe an unfriendly time.
And then Pokemon Let's Go was a whole lot of fun. Enjoyed that. One of my personal favorites, Skyrim. Love that it's on the Switch. So had a good time with that. Had a good stretch there where I was spamming James with emails from different Skyrim characters. So that was.
Like we could, it wasn't like he was putting up a front or anything. Like we could see who they were from, and we're just going like, do we even want to deal with this? Like,
and then when it was used, I was like, okay, let's see how long I can string this along. Yeah, and it went for a while until Geek obviously was annoyed by it.
I think we were all like, is he worried he's not allowed to send us emails? Like, what's happening right now? Should we just put this to bed now, or do we just want to keep going? And I was like, fuck it, I don't care. Let's just play it out there. Like, our email has enough nonsense in it, thanks.
well, that's the thing is, like, I've heard of a few of the emails, so I'm like, this can't be the worst thing in the inbox. So,
I mean, we will probably read the worst thing in the inbox. Like, there's a if you send me something truly nightmarish, there's like an 80% chance it's getting in the show because we're not good at what we do. We just keep doing it out of necessity.
The last game on my list is Mario Rabbids. I really enjoyed that. The DLC was fantastic as well. So
I was going to ask you played the DLC, David. So I'm glad you did the Donkey Kong Adventure. Is that right?
I almost liked it more than the main game, just because the way that you could chain attacks. Like there were some battles I won in like 10 seconds because. The way that they play off the characters play off each other is that you can hit people multiple times. So I was just shredding through people.
Yeah. I really liked playing as Donkey Kong and Rabbit Cranky. Like they had cool abilities, and you're right, they were able to kind of chain things together, and you were able to win certain levels pretty quickly. I found the game a little bit maybe too easy. Like I mean, it's fairly lengthy, for a piece of DLC, but I never really felt any great challenge from it. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I mean, beating the levels was a given. It was more whether I could do it in like the 3 bananas or whatever, the 3 stars, like the getting it beaten in the amount of time to get the maximum points was where the challenge was, I guess, because I don't think I ever lost an actual match. Like I would always continue, but sometimes it'd be 3, sometimes it'd be 2. So that really was where the challenge came for me. So.
Yeah, and certainly the extra challenges that unlock at the end of the game, right? I don't know if you did any of those. Those are really, really hard. Like it's a funny jump in difficulty. Like I think the main Donkey Kong Adventure content is pretty easy, but then you jump into the extra challenge maps afterwards, and they're brutally hard. Like there's no escalation, there's no scaling. Like it's just from easy to super hard. I found some of them
too required like a specific set of moves. Like it wasn't like here's a few different ways to beat it. It was like we have one way in mind, and you need to figure it out.
Yeah, in that way they're almost like puzzles, right? Like there is only the one solution to them, rather than like how can you creatively solve this? So that was a little bit disappointing.
Yeah,
I think.
So I didn't get in. I did some of the challenges in the main game, but
me too.
I mean, it's also the nature of like there's a million games to review, so there not a whole lot of time to go into the post game stuff. So.
Yeah, just one other thing about that, just because I did recently play that Donkey Kong Adventure DLC. I got it on a Black Friday deal. I didn't like not being able to change characters. Like, I get that they were really well set up in terms of the abilities. Donkey Kong, Rabbid Cranky, and Rabbid Peach. But I liked being able to swap characters in and out in the base game. Like, I liked, using Luigi or Rabbid Luigi and then getting Yoshi at the end. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, I'm adding a character so late in the game. But yeah, I felt like that was missing a little bit. It would have been nice to, maybe if they had another character or two. I know that's asking a lot, but yeah, not being able to switch made it a little bit stale when you're running through the whole DLC. It's just these 3 characters.
Any games that I missed here that you guys think deserve mention?
Not as best RPGs necessarily, but just, RPGs that we've played maybe, or that might be worth talking about a little bit. I played World of Final Fantasy. Don got a code earlier than we did, and he reviewed the game for us. But I ended up we got a code late, and I ended up playing through it. World of Final Fantasy is really funny because it's trying to be baby's first RPG, but it also has Pokemon elements to it, and it's got some really nice presentation elements. Like, it looks pretty good, and it's got kind of remixed Final Fantasy tracks, which I liked. But the gameplay and the stories all over it, it's total nonsense. The gameplay it's only okay, pretty standard, turn-based stuff. You collect these things called mirages, which are basically little Final Fantasy creatures. And you can evolve them and give them different skills and stuff. And yeah, that part's fun, the collecting and, changing your team and stuff like that. But, yeah, I'd say a fairly decent, if not forgettable, RPG that kind of came. And another port, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And then just to throw it in, because I did review it, another indie mention, another port, Child of Light. Child of Light is a really good game that if people haven't picked it up on Switch, it's perfect there. It's very compact. It's not a long game, but definitely an indie RPG that with a really good turn-based battle system that people should check out too.
I've played a bunch.
What about you, James?
Not a bunch. I've played about 5 or 6 other RPGs. I mean, you have the 2 Valkyria Chronicle games, which I think are good games. I think 4, which is the one that came out about a month ago now, maybe a little bit more. Actually, yeah,
September, I think. Right?
I think it's a little too long. I think it grinds out for a while, and it got to the point where I was like, "Oh God, here we go again." And I think there's a few too many times where the game is just like, I'm going to put you in an unwinnable situation that there's no way you could beat the first time, and you just have to fail and figure out what we want you to do instead. But I still think they're mechanically interesting games. I think I liked 1 more, although 1 is outrageously broken. You won't realize how broken it is, though, unless you either discover it, which might take you some time to do, or someone tells you about it. So I won't tell you, and if you don't know it, you won't use it. But once you know it's there, you will never not be able to use it, because it is the most expedient way to accomplish your objective. And I've only played 1 of them on Switch, but wow, there are a lot of Atelier games now. Oh boy, are there. There are a great many of them now, because they just released 3 at the same time for some godforsaken reason.
And they're all close to like full priced titles.
They're
if I'm not
$40
mistaken.
a pop, or $90 for 3.
Right? Yeah, man.
Do you need a 500 gigabyte SD card to download them, or what?
I don't know. Oh, to be fair, no, it's probably not how these games are built. But what I will say about them is, like, they're slow burns. They take a while, but there can be. They are capable of being a relatively relaxed experience. But like, after I play one of I've played 2 and a spinoff, and after I play 1, I'm usually good for like 2 years. So the fact.
James, I've never played one of those games before, and I'm always a little bit intrigued or fascinated by them too. Like, it's another series that I'm like, oh, maybe I should play those games. But then again, I hate crafting.
That's all that game is crafting. It's going out and collecting materials and then crafting stuff with them, and trying to make better stuff as you go, and crafting stuff for money, crafting stuff for weapons, crafting things for your party, because you do go out in the field and fight and stuff like that. and the things you make are used as part of that process.
So the Atelier game
what about story or character development?
They're bad.
Any...
They're cheesy moe nonsense. Of the two that I've played, I preferred the one that was on the PS3, Eshkan Logi, more because it felt like it was more of a game.
Okay.
But yeah, that one's not on Switch, so sorry.
Yet.
I mean, they did just release an entire... So these things come out in arcs, and they'll release 3 games in 3 years because they're madmen, and then they're just there, and it's like, well, now we have 3 games. And then you're just kind of stuck with it, so you just have to kind of okay, we got 3 of these things down. Then if you don't like that arc of games, well, wait 3 years, they'll release another arc of 3 games, and you can say, do I like this one? Maybe I do.
How do they differ? Like the different sets of they seem to be all trilogies, right? Like how does one trilogy differ? So the one I think you reviewed it for the site. Did you not? It came out close to the beginning of the Switch life cycle,
which came out earlier this year.
Okay. Yeah. It was this year. Okay, and then the most recent 3. Like how are these?
So Lide and Sul are in a different trilogy than these other 3. I think it's 2 trilogies later. I think legitimately like 7 of these came out on the PS3. Like a lot of them came out. These 3 are the Arland series, whereas the Lide and Sul are the Mysterious series. The one I talked about with the PS3 I played are from the Dusk series because we're just going to keep doing this. You can't stop us. How are they different? Usually every game has at least one thing that seems like a really pedantic change. And so to give you an example, Lide and Sul, there's actually 2 alchemists, and you pick one at the beginning, and you could be a guy, which is really unusual for the series. And he makes weapons because, of course, he does. And she makes more crafty things. You still make both, but I mean, you still control both of them ultimately. It's just like which one are you playing the game from their perspective of, which changes almost nothing. But they added a different type of crafting stuff that you could do at the same time. That's it. Right.
So they're not noticeably
unless you're way into it. Like if you're way into the series, that you hear me say that and you're upset. But yeah,
fair enough.
There are minor differences. The biggest thing is the casts change, and maybe you hate the protagonist of the second game in the Arland series, but you love the first and third ones. And I think with the Arland ones, that's actually the case. I think the first one people like, and the third one people like, and the second one they're like, man, fuck her. So, of course, you have to be kind of a lunatic to play all of these games.
Yeah, right. I mean, if they're also bloody similar,
they just keep making them. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I guess
either people are buying them,
or they don't cost anything to make.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they're all the same, right? you keep the mechanics the same every time.
Maybe it's like you said, there isn't a human making it. There's some AI.
I've wondered about that and about the Etrian games. I mean, so the thing is, like I said, I can play one and I'm good for 2+ years. But they come out once a year, so... Or in the case of us, they come out 3 at a time. That's all that needs to be said about those games.
Well, and that kind of brings us to the first trend that we're starting to see more in 2018 is that a lot of stuff we're seeing is ports. Like that's kind of what 2018. I regaled the NWR staff with a weekly rant about why I'm so mad at all the ports. So now I'm going to subject Thirsty Mage listeners to it as well. In certain cases, I don't mind the ports. There's just too many. Like, I don't need a lot of these games that are, I don't know, like...
Give an example of one that you're like, you were extraneous, please leave.
I don't know, like... I didn't need Diablo 3. Like, I know a lot of people like it, and it's fine, but it's an 8-year-old game now? Like, I understand why it's there, like, it's there for mobile. There's people that'll pay for it to be there. I get it, but I mean, like, 1 month we get Dark Souls, the next month we get Diablo. And then like all the Atelier games that have come out, like that are like PS3 ports, and now we're getting PS2 ports. And as big a Final Fantasy fan as I am, we're getting all of these Final Fantasy games all over again in 2019. And I'm looking at like every game that was announced, and I can literally see the PS4 box on my shelf as we speak.
So, David, it's funny that you say this, because Diablo 3, yeah, very recent port. It's shown up in a lot of places, right? You know, PC, PS3, Xbox 360, PS4, Xbox One. This is kind of the same thing with Skyrim, right? You know, I know it's one of your favorite games of all time. I think you were pretty happy when it came to Switch. It runs pretty well on Switch. It doesn't have the mod support, which is, you know, kind of a downer, but to be expected, I suppose. So I want to know why would you, maybe I don't know if this is true, but why would you think Skyrim is like, you know, okay, that's a good port, that can be on Switch. I'm kind of just playing devil's advocate here. Yeah. But then Diablo 3 is, you know, the one we shouldn't have. You know, why Skyrim but not Diablo?
We didn't really need Skyrim either per se. Like that's just a personal preference for me. Like okay, like Skyrim is fun. I'll pay for it again. Like, I'm not saying none of these should be on the Switch. My concern is just being just too much coming. Like, there's just too many ports. Like, the thing, I guess the big issue is that if the ports weren't there, we would just have nothing, I guess, because a lot of these RPGs take time to build. Like the stuff that I'm really excited about, the gaps between, you know, like the next Final Fantasy is probably years away. The next Persona is probably years away. Mm-hmm. The next SMT is years away. Like, so I understand that, you know, these ports are to fill in the gaps. They're to get the more money for the publishers to, you know, fund you know, these big projects now.
So that's the problem then, right? When ports are used to fill in the calendar, it's telling us that we don't have new games for you, so you need to play something you might have already played before, right? Like, I get seeing that as
like
a negative,
reminder,
right?
Like, we don't have anything, so, you know, play this game again in the meantime.
So my thought about this, and, you know, I'm kind of with you. Like, I maybe don't hate, or I'm not against ports as much, but I do see where if it's filling in the gaps in a calendar, we're not getting these new unique titles that maybe we're looking forward to more. But I'm thinking, you know, the last two Nintendo home consoles, right? The Nintendo Wii and the Wii U. The Wii U is a total failure, and not many people picked it up. So you know, you might have had a lot of people, Nintendo fans, that didn't buy the Wii U. And so now we're trying to get them back, or we know there's going to be new people to the Nintendo family. And then the Wii U, right? A lot of people had it, but if I'm not mistaken, the attach rate was really low. People weren't buying games for that console. Everyone had a Wii. It was a novelty. You know, your parents, your grandparents could play. Like, everyone could play the Wii. But at the same time, the Wii and the Wii U weren't getting those ports that were coming out, right? There was no Diablo 3, no Dark Souls, no Skyrim on the Wii or the Wii U. So it's kind of the first opportunity for Nintendo to get those games, right? And for a Nintendo-centric, or the people that only buy Nintendo consoles, is their first time to play those ported games. So I kind of see it, right? And I kind of appreciate that a lot of people will be playing Diablo 3 and Skyrim and Dark Souls for the first time on the Switch. And I want those people to experience it. But at the same time, I don't want ports to be, okay, so there's no new Nintendo game, there's no new Monolith game, or God knows when Retro Studios' next game is coming during the summer in 2019, so here's another port for you. Right here, we're going to put all the Final Fantasies, 7, 9, 10, 12, they're all coming in the summer. We'll call it the Summer of Final Fantasy. You'll get a discount if you buy one, but there aren't going to be any new games, right? Like, that kind of sucks, right? When you go a sustained amount of time with no real new content, and then it's just people buying stuff they've already played before. Like, that's a downer, you know? So I feel
what I
you
would
there
say
for sure.
is being missed here in a couple different spots is there is the idea that this is, you know, we have an audience we've never served before. But there is the secondary of, we have an audience that maybe we've served before, but never portably. Never in a format they can take with us.
Yeah, good point.
But we also have a situation where we have publishers who have saying, I haven't worked with Nintendo in 20 years, 10 years,
Yeah.
Ever. This is porting over my games from last gen gives me the opportunity to reestablish that pipeline with them, to get to know what it's like to work with them, to take a relatively low risk to see if my audience is there.
Yeah, that's a really good point, James.
And so this gives them the opportunity to just to finance those games that we want them to make, those new games that are coming, because they get the opportunity to recoup profit on games that should have realistically already been out of their revenue generation stream. But that also means that it makes companies hopefully more willing to take risks on putting things on Switch, saying we can put more games out there. We can invest the money we're going to need to make this game run well here, because A, we've established there's an audience, and B, we've already sort of pre-financed it with pushing our old games onto this platform. It allows all parties involved to kind of gauge the situation and ultimately make a play in it. And I think what we're going to continue to see, we started seeing it last gen more than anything. I mean, it happened in the past, but PS3, Xbox 360 were inundated with these. They would be name of PS2 game HD.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe HD collection if there were like 2 or 3 PS2 games. Yeah.
Devil May Cry, Shadow of the Colossus.
Zone of the Enders.
There were tons of them.
You can just run down the list. And the reason those games happened is because there was the opportunity to sell them to that market again because they could add something new, HD. But B, because games just get expensive to make, and being able to sell them again and reset the price clock on them. This is something Nintendo doesn't do. Means they can get that money a second time at that higher number. Nintendo, because they never drop the price of their games ever, come and take it from our cold dead hands, don't necessarily get the price clock reset, but they get everything else. So I think what we're seeing is we're really just sort of catching up with all the other platforms who have been going through this for a whole generation already, and so they're kind of used to getting all these ports. So we get things like the collections, which are different. That's one thing, but we still get these ports. That's just kind of par for the course in Xbox and PlayStation world. These things happen, and games don't die on the generation they came out on. They come out again in the next generation with some kind of moderate increase or something different about them materially. And we're sort of just living in that world now. And so, yeah, a lot of these RPGs are ports. Ys 8 is a port. We're going to talk about it, but we're getting all the Final Fantasies except 8, which is... I want them to officially explain why that is. I think I know why it is, but I want them to say it.
Yeah.
We're getting... what else have we gotten that was a port on RPG space? I mean, Valkyria Chronicles 4 is technically a port. Valkyria Chronicles is super a port. And I think also because of the architecture Nintendo chose, people are more comfortable with it, and supporting to it isn't this nightmare chore of we need to make this thing work on what is the third generation of the Hollywood and Broadway chips. These chips that Nintendo originally designed with IBM back for the GameCube. It's like these. Granted, it's not the same chipset, but they're on a architecture that other people are familiar with, and so we're going to see more of these ports. Hopefully, it paves the way for other games to come out. I think we've already seen that, not in an RPG space, where we went Doom to Wolfenstein, where Wolfenstein 2 is a better port than Doom is, and Doom's a good port, but it came sooner.
Do you think that these other, like Bethesda has seen success, and they're obviously, like with the next Doom coming out, they've already said that they'll have a Switch version at the launch with the rest. But I don't know if I'm convinced that the third parties that they wanted to come back are going to come back with new content. Because I'm just thinking, like, if there's a Square Enix game out there that's being developed for Switch that's new, we haven't heard about it yet.
Sure.
Like this.
Well, that was Octopath, right? Like we got that this year, though.
Yeah.
Like there might be.
Yeah,
I
wouldn't be surprised if they haven't talked about it if it does exist, because they're still. I mean, they're trying to sell Octopath.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, like, right now the big things they got is like they're working on the Final Fantasy VII remake. That's obviously not going to be on Switch. They got Kingdom Hearts 3. That's not gonna
right.
If it's on Switch, it'll be years from now. They've got
projects that have been in development for the better part of a decade.
I mean, that's the problem with Square Enix, right? Is they work on these things for so long, and the Switch is the newest kid on the block that there's no chance, right? They can't just do a U-turn let's also develop for Switch, right?
These are all for PS4 or later gen. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, with their development process so lagged, are they really gonna? Is there another Octopath? Should we expect it? I know that they've got the Tokyo RPG Factory working on things, but I don't need.
Yeah, the less said about them, the better. Possibly, unless they learn from mistakes.
I don't want that to be it. And Atlas isn't working on anything for Switch, as far as we know.
Yeah, they are. They're working on
I
SNT5.
the Bravely Default team making something too.
Okay. Yes, they are working on that, I guess.
I mean,
keep in mind all the Atlas support we got on the 3DS, right? Eventually that's going to come to Switch. Atlas was one of the biggest third-party supporters of the 3DS.
Still exist.
And eventually all of that's going to come over to Switch, right?
It could. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, we're in year 2 of the system, and because it launched in March, it's kind of a weird timing to talk about. But I wouldn't freak out on this stuff until we get through maybe even past E3, maybe until we get to TGS. Because honestly, I wouldn't be that shocked if people took a step back and said, let's see how this goes before we really commit. I think a lot of companies took a stab at it project. They said, I'm gonna try this project out, and it's gonna be relatively low risk, and we're gonna see how it goes. And if it goes well, then we'll go ahead and work on some other stuff. And I mean, we'll see how Square Enix. But I mean, Square Enix must care because they decided they were going to port 1 million Final Fantasies over.
Yeah,
that went beyond just testing the waters. They just said, "Oh, here's a lot of them. Enjoy." And I think Final Fantasy 12 portable is kind of an enticing option. I've never played 12.
Yeah, and the Zodiac Age version, which I believe is the one being ported, is a really good game, actually. They made a lot of quality of life improvements to that game. I played the original on PS2, and I couldn't stand it, but I played the Zodiac Age on PS4, and it was really great, actually. Getting that portable I think it's a bigger deal than we might be making of it. And James, you brought this up a few minutes ago about how the HD collections, and then all these games are now portable, and this is always in the marketing, right? It's always Skyrim on the go, Dark Souls on the go, everything on the fucking go. They're beating that horse in the ground,
right?
Like
Nintendo's design language. So Nintendo's personal ads.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the other thing. A lot of these games are in ads produced by Nintendo. Nintendo made the Skyrim ad because technically Nintendo published that game.
Yeah. And you're seeing all these games and companies they want to be in Nintendo Directs, right? They want to be in Nintendo's kind of with their marketing, right? And using that language too, but just being a part of that ecosystem, right? They're not necessarily doing their own marketing for the games, although they will do that as well. But they want to be part of Nintendo's marketing for these games.
We will not get the next big Final Fantasy on Switch. I don't think.
I don't think so either.
Now, what that game looks like, who the hell knows? Because Square Enix may not release that game till 2030.
But we might get the Pocket version of it, though.
God.
Final Fantasy 16 Pocket Edition.
But
can't wait for that.
Square Enix, Atlas, Sega. We have to call it Sega when we're talking about RPGs, because technically speaking, Sega also makes RPGs. They're all going to continue to put stuff out on that platform because it's viable. And as long as it stays viable, and its current sell-through rate, it should, that stuff's going to continue to exist. Now, not everything, because there are simply matters of physics that keep some of these games from running. The Switch is what it is, and Nintendo made a decision when they built that system, and that decision has paid off for them up until now. That may change at some point, and they may need to rethink their calculus, which was the Wii situation. But at the moment, I don't think those companies would feel confident backing away from the platform.
I guess a lot of it will depend on when the next gen of everything else comes out.
Right.
If we're seeing a PS5 and an Xbox or whatever, 2019, the Switch is going to start looking old quick.
Well,
like
yes.
like even compared to Steam, like it's kind of seeming that way already. Like I put together a quick list of like what I'm looking forward to in 2019, and it's almost entirely PC based.
But I mean, there is. You're not wrong. Like there is the real risk when they design their system to be low power draw, portable, all that stuff, that they've set themselves up for a failure. 2 years down the road, we can't foresee. We can't foresee it. We can make guesses, but we don't know what Nintendo has in mind. They ultimately got caught by this same trap on the Wii U. Like they put out a system in the off year that was in the neighborhood of its contemporaries for like a year, and then it wasn't. You have to assume that they've at least thought about this. But maybe the plan is that, okay, we had all those 3DS developers. We're giving them more now than they've ever had to play with. So they're going to keep making stuff. And we're just going to keep putting it out. We're going to make a viable ecosystem through that. And if a company wants to design their new game for the new systems, but also try to make sure they can put it out on Switch, they'll do that. And if we keep a viable ecosystem, enough of them will, that we'll still get a flow of games.
They're always going to have the portability aspect over other people. So even when the PS5 and Xbox 2 or Scarlet, whatever the hell it's going to be called, those systems, yeah, they'll be more powerful. They're going to get, bigger and better games, fine. But they will never have the portability aspect that Switch has. And I think that's, what has really attracted people the most to the system, is being able to play it. The local multiplayer has been really good, but being able to play it on the go, play it at home, it's so versatile. And just because, we keep coming back to this idea of the 3DS developers coming over, the 3DS development ending. And I think that's maybe not getting as much attention as it should. Like, keep in mind think about the last 2 or 3 years of the 3DS's lifespan or existence. We've probably got about 10 Atlas RPGs, right? So all of those resources are going to move over to the Switch, and maybe it's not next year, but 2020, 2021, whatever it is, you're going to have this outpouring of games from Atlas. And I keep coming back to Atlas, but I love their games, and I'm excited to see those RPGs show up eventually. Those teams move all their efforts to Switch. It's going to happen eventually, right? Like they see that their audience is looking for portable play, and that's the Switch is going to be the only place to have that happen. I would caution
against assuming they're going to move all those resources, because the other thing they've got going on at the same time is it's taking more resources to produce the games for those systems. And so they may find themselves becoming somewhat more risk averse, and as a consequence, like not spin up a bunch of small projects, but try to collate resources around a similar thing. I mean, we've seen them launch one-ish new studios, maybe two, depending on how you want to look at it, just to make up the difference. And they're essentially being bankrolled by Sega, who just reconsolidated all their teams again. So I think right now everybody's probably trying to figure out what they want to do with Switch for the next 2 years, and I think we're still kind of caught in the middle of that. What'll be interesting to me is through the next few directs, and as we roll into the new year, and then up through June when E3 happens, what do we have to show? What comes out of Japan more than anything?
I mean, as usual, Nintendo's holding their cards really close to the vest, right? And David, you were saying, a lot of your games you're looking forward to next year are all on Steam or on PC, and that's because those games are announced, with a lot of lead time, right? They want to let people know about these games so they can add them to their wish list, so they can pre-order them, so they can think about them, right? But Nintendo's not doing that. They're always waiting as long as they can, letting other games shine, and then when we get closer to release dates, then they're going to announce them. Like I think that in this January Direct, which we're probably going to have, we're going to see a lot of, big games that maybe we've only heard about or heard rumors about, or maybe, there's always going to be surprises that we have no idea about. So it's easy to say that 2019, what's coming to Switch that we can look forward to is the truth. We don't know yet. I mean, there's a few games they've mentioned, but we don't really have any dates outside of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, all the, string of other adjectives that they've added to the end of that. Yeah, we just don't know a lot about what's coming to Switch yet. So I think it's hard to say if it's going to be good or bad or look forward to it. You know, we'll have to wait and see.
I will point to the Diablo example. So Nintendo had to delay the Nintendo Direct because of the earthquake that hit Japan. That Direct was supposed to have the Diablo 3 announcement in it. Ultimately, Blizzard went ahead and announced anyway because presumably they had other marketing queued up to go, and they couldn't delay it till an unknown time. But that was a company who effectively had no working relationship with Nintendo since the N64. Getting this like position of being held up for an announcement, and we've sort of strayed outside of our RPG coverage space, but like that's kind of what the marketing is sort of coalescing around, is that there's these messaging bursts where things come out. It's obviously being curated by someone's hand. And so if it's Nintendo's hand or if it's the publisher's hand, somebody is doing it, and somebody's keeping games from being announced 2 years early, 3 years early, except for SMT5, except for Travis Strikes Again. These games that were just like, we're going to show you something so you know this system exists. Because if you remember that very first Switch reveal, they had basically nothing to show. And it wasn't stuff didn't exist. They could have shown it. We know Zelda was pretty much done. They just didn't.
Are there any other games from that prepresentation that they've talked about or that were mentioned that we haven't seen yet?
There weren't that many games in that presentation. It was like five.
There weren't.
The head of the Yakuza studio, I'm blanking on his name now. He always looks like he just got out of a tan. Nagoshi. Nagoshi mentioned that he was working on something for Switch, and that was the end of the conversation. And then he was gone.
Right, yeah. And we haven't heard anything about that since.
Yeah, it's hard. My only concern though is like the shadow drop quality or whatever you want, like Diablo 3 where we didn't hear anything. It's easier to keep that under wraps though because the game has been ready for 8 years. And it's already a known thing.
But they had to make a new port of that game. Like, there were a lot of people who knew that game exists, and it didn't leak.
Yeah, that's true. But then at the same time, I mean, there's no benefit of leaking that they were working on it, though, either, though. Because there's value in the surprise of, hey, look, this game...
They themselves had actually hinted at it on social media.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. The light switch, of course.
Because I'm thinking of other games, like, because Nintendo has hinted at, like, for 2019, like, you know, what we know we're getting on Switch is we're getting Fire Emblem, Three Houses. Like, we've known for over a year that's coming, right? Like,
it was supposed to come last year at one point.
Yeah.
Or this year.
Exactly. And then we may or may not get the Gen 8 Pokemon game from Game Freak, but they at least told us they were working on it, and it might be end of 2019.
Right.
Then we have Town. I don't know if they're still looking at 2019 for that, or if that's going to be 2020.
Do we want to transition into that this conversation, then kind of move away from where we're at, like what's actually slated to come out?
Yeah, let's talk about that for 2019.
I think right now, other than like, if we take ports off the table,
why? I'm legitimately interested in what in God's name Dragon Quest XI S is, because that game has never been shown, may or may not exist, and like they won't even commit to what it's based on. They just say stuff. Like when you ask them about the Switch version, it's like, we'll talk about it when we're ready, and we're like, dude, it's supposed to come out soon, and they're like, maybe. Like it's a port of something. But I am deeply curious what that game is.
I would like to see a Dragon Quest on Switch.
Well, and there's two versions of Dragon Quest XI. So there's the 3DS version, and then there's the PS4 version. And of course, they're completely different.
See, that's what I'm disappointed about. Like, I really wanted that 3DS version. I love the idea of the two different visual styles on the two screens. That was so cool. I can't believe that's not coming to the West.
But I mean, they for the business standpoint, they did the smart thing. How many are we going to sell?
Yeah, of course.
0. We're going to sell 0. Dragon Quest doesn't sell here anyway.
Yeah.
On the dead 3DS or the dying 3DS, like what? No. But what is S? Like, why did they feel the need to give it its own name? What's up with that? Why is this game coming so late? Why haven't you talked about it? Why do you run out of the room when someone mentions it? Why did you announce it before Nintendo announced the Switch, you crazy individuals? What's wrong with you?
maybe they couldn't decide on which version they wanted to go with, and they're like, well, there's an S in either game.
Dragon Quest XI was the first or second game ever announced for Switch. It was announced before Nintendo announced the Switch. It was in development for NX like a year before the Switch press conference. It's bonkers. And they have never, ever even told us what version to look. Should we be looking at the 3DS version? Should we be looking at the PS4 version? Or did you create a third version because you've completely lost your goddamn minds? Like, we don't know. They won't tell us.
So I think there's a couple. I mean, let's talk about that S at the end of Dragon Quest XI, because I think it's really interesting. So S, of course, Switch, but this idea, the game is not just going to be a port. There's going to be extra content. Maybe they're going to add some DLC to it. It's going to be a different game in some way. It's not the only game that ends with an S to denote that it's a port coming to Switch that might be different. I saw something today. I think it was Dead or Alive, the volleyball series. One of them ends with like Scarlet, or it ends with some other word where the last word starts with an S. And so, it must be the game finally coming to Switch. So I wonder if we're going to see more of this. Other ports where it's not just going to be the exact same game. It's not going to be like Diablo or Dark Souls. It's going to be something S at the end, and it's the game, but we're going to add something to it to make it worth your while. It's not just portable. There's new content.
So you think it'll be?
So I'm really interested.
You think it'll be more than just Dragon Quest XI with Ganondorf added?
I do. I don't think it's going to be the same as Diablo 3. The Diablo 3 editions were really minor. It was more just kind of getting that game working really well on Switch, and it is an impressive port for sure. I think there's going to be something here, an extra chapter, maybe a 5-hour thing post game or something like that. Maybe a new character. Like a new character could be enough to make that, to call that initial content worthwhile. I think there's going to be something else there. You can't call it Dragon Quest XI when you've got that on PS4 and 3DS that are basically the same game, and then add an S for no reason, just because it's on Switch. That doesn't make any sense.
Nothing about Dragon Quest XI makes sense. So like they could totally be like, hey, this looks like a bad version of the PS4. It runs at 30 frames per second, and it's janky as all get out. Here you go. What's the S mean? I don't know. Take it. Eat from this trough, you pigs.
I certainly wouldn't put it past Square Enix, but I gotta believe that there's something new there. I mean, we'll see it. I'm sure we're gonna see it next year.
It stands for shit, why did we announce this thing so early?
Yeah.
It's Dragon Quest XI. I just want to know. I just want to know where we're going. I want to know where this stupid train stops. Does it stop at the station, or are we out in a field somewhere with no indication of civilization in any direction? What?
So do you think the strategy of we'll tell you when we feel like it is the best way to go?
No, God. well, hold on. If we're talking about the Square Enix for Dragon Quest, no, this has been a messaging disaster.
Yeah.
If we're talking about in general, I think it's probably fine. Because, I mean, Diablo 3 doesn't seem to have been hurt by it. It seemed to have sold pretty well. We only found out about Smash Brothers because they were going to have it at E3, and there was no way they were going to keep it secret that their entire booth was built around Smash Brothers and have a Smash Brothers tournament without telling us Smash Brothers existed.
I guess they kept the details of Let's Go under wraps for a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Like the actual details.
Yeah, they did for sure. People didn't know about the control scheme or what was going to be different about it. Like we'd seen Viridian Forest like 30 fucking times. Like that was all we had seen of the game, and that the creatures were in the grass and you would walk into them to you didn't even know if it was a battle or not. How would you get to catching them? They really didn't say anything much about that game until really close to launch.
I think what that lets them do ultimately is it keeps games that are 8 months out from overshadowing games that are 2 months out. It keeps games that are 2 months out from overshadowing games that came out this week. And it lets them give their games moments to shine. And I think we'd have to at least argue it's been moderately successful. I mean, ARMS sold a decent number of units. This is the best-selling Xenoblade ever.
The Smash Bros. Numbers are through the roof, right? Like they've sold so many consoles and so many. I mean, they're setting records with whatever strategy they're employing. It is working for them, right? Like not necessarily working for other companies, but for Nintendo.
I guess that's part of it, though. Is I'm kind of surprised because we always there's all this talk about how successful the Switch is, and it is. It's selling games hands over fist. It's selling system. It's the fastest growing system, and it's like, so why it? But it still doesn't feel like it's getting the third party love.
Well, it takes time. It takes time to build those games. I mean, I would say it's certainly compared to where Nintendo's been. It's been night and day. And I think if you look at the more nimble, smaller developers, these independent stuff, it's getting pretty much everything. Unless a deal was involved, it's pretty much getting it. It's getting stuff the other people aren't getting. I mean, SNK Collection is only on Switch. The Katamari Damacy reroll was PC and Switch. It's actually getting stuff that other people don't get.
Yeah, I guess Ubisoft must have there must have just been a partnership with Nintendo to get the jump on everyone.
Maybe
because I'm thinking games Mario Rabbids and Starlink.
I mean, more than anything, Ubisoft and Nintendo still had a relationship, and Nintendo's management has made it clear in the past that relationships matter. Mm-hmm. And so, if Ubisoft calls, they've probably got the current CEO's number. No matter who the current CEO is, they probably have his personal contact information if they really want to make something happen. And he probably takes that call. Whereas if, stick somebody who Nintendo hadn't worked with in a while, if Blizzard Activision wanted to reach out to Nintendo's executives and get moved to the front of the line for some help, they'd probably need to call in a fixer first to get him in touch. Really to get obviously the information is available for publishers and developers. Here's the contact information. Here's how you go make games. Here's how you request a dev kit, all that stuff. But not everybody goes through that process. And there are people who get moved to the front of the line, I am sure, and Ubisoft is definitely on that list.
So I was going to say, we're not getting BioWare we're not getting Anthem or Kingdom Hearts on Switch, fine, but we are getting. If you remember the Game Awards, Mortal Kombat 11. That's coming to Switch day and date. Crash Team Racing, that's coming to Switch day and date. Those are really surprising third-party games that, if this were a year or two ago, those probably would be the games we'd be waiting for, right? But now, as more third parties have, maybe developing better relationships with Nintendo, maybe they have more lead time, obviously, right? They've had the Switch, they've played it, they've been working on it. Now more of those games are going to start coming out at the same time. We're not going to be getting ports. We're going to get the same games at the same time as they come to PS4 and Xbox, right? So I think it's just taken time to get to that place, like James was saying. So, again, we don't know a ton of stuff about 2019, I don't think. And there are some big games that we're not going to get, or we might get them later, but more and more third parties seem to be on board with bringing games to Switch at the same time.
I could explain CTR. I'm guessing by now, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is at 13 million units. It was at 11.7 back in September. So I'm guessing. I'm guessing they've sold at least 1 million since then.
They just got. I read it somewhere. They just got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe 2. It's now past the number of Wii U's they sold or something like that. Or there was some game that has now sold more than the number of Wii U's
Odyssey
or something like that.
Odyssey is slightly ahead of Mario Kart 8.
Probably
with 12 million.
Is it okay? Yeah, maybe it was Odyssey that.
Yeah, I mean, these games are proving there's a market, and so games come out.
Yeah.
Nintendo only lists their own software under the top selling units because this is for their investors, so it doesn't help us at all for this conversation. Because why would they help us? They don't know what podcasts are. They probably think it's people on a conference call. But
well, they know their own podcast, the Nintendo Power podcast, but that's just like the magazine was. Just
I doubt the Nintendo executives even know what that. If you asked,
maybe
If
they're probably we're printing that magazine again.
If you asked their C-suite what a podcast is, God help you.
Yeah.
Is that when people get on the phone and talk? No, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're just going to move on then. So back to our topic.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of these 2019 games. So what are we looking forward to that we know in terms of RPGs coming to Switch?
Yeah, I mean, we know Fire Emblem is coming. I have my suspicions, my doubts that there was a whole lot of that game to show at E3. So we finally got to see it at E3 back when it was announced, the 2018 game, well before E3. I'm guessing what we saw at E3 might have been a fairly comprehensive view of the current state of that game at that moment. Now, granted, there was...
So you think it's going to be late 2019, James, if at all?
I think they've had at least 6 months to work on it since then. Like, I just think it was still relatively early. I think it wasn't like, man, this game might make 2019. I think they were like, no, this is... Or it might make 2018. I think it's like, no, this is a 2019 game. And I think they just said 2018 when they said it because they were just like, well, we got to say something's coming in 2018. Because at the time, they were adopting that same strategy. They were talking about Xenoblade, Mario, ARMS, Mario Kart, Zelda in that reverse order. And so, like, there was no time to talk about Fire Emblem. But the producers of Fire Emblem were selling this weird spin-off Fire Emblem Echo Shadows of Valentia. And it's like, well, we have another Fire Emblem coming, but it's for Switch. And they may have actually used the word NX when they said it. And then they had to say, well, when is it coming? 2018, that seems far enough away. Like, it was probably really nothing more sophisticated than that. I'm just like, 2018 sounds like it's really far away. That's a great time. And it is what it is. But
so they said spring. Is it spring 2019? Was that part of the marketing?
Reasonable. I mean, they had obviously already recorded some audio. So I'm not suggesting like that they just made that as a mock-up. I'm just saying like maybe there really wasn't much playable to show beyond this. But that it was still.
I know that now they've done a I think Fire Emblem Awakening was February, if I'm not mistaken. Shadows of Valentia was May. When did Fates come out?
It came out.
Just trying to think timing of the year.
It came out really different from Japan, though. I want to say Japan got it super early.
Right? Yeah.
So it's hard to say. I would guess that it's going to be a worldwide release, though.
Yeah, I mean they've been doing that with pretty much everything now. So. Yeah, I mean, I think May, like end of April, middle of May kind of timing seems to make sense. Like I feel like that's where they would head. When they say spring and summer, they generally go late. They generally go later in the window. If
we don't get a big blowout during the first direct, the first Nintendo focused direct of the year, then it's post E3.
Oh, I mean, it's got to be one of the highlight games of the January direct. Like I don't know, it's the game after Mario Deluxe.
If it's post E3, I could see them actually showing something else instead. Maybe something we don't even know about.
Man, post E3, Jesus, I just can't imagine
post E3 too because like they've got new Super Mario Brothers in January. They got Yoshi, I think, just came out that it's going to be April. So
there are 2 months between those.
Earlier,
February, March. You think for
I don't know.
Fire Emblem?
Legitimately, they've said spring. I believe that that's what they believed when they said it.
Yeah, it won't be February. It's got to be. So it'll be after Yoshi, right? You've got two kind of more casual games, Mario and then Yoshi, and then you go into something a little bit more hardcore with Fire Emblem.
But then but now you really are kind of going into the E3 or around E3 time because it's Yoshi's end of April, so you're thinking.
But they do generally do a game like a bigger game before E3, right? They kind of get that out of the way, and then E3 is all the stuff after that. So I think May makes a ton of sense. I think it's just been a matter
of they had a game that was going to release in that time frame, and they didn't want to release it right around E3. But they have just in recent years, and I'm blanking on what game it was. I was at the E3 at the time, so I know that it happened. It was like, here is a game, it is coming out next week. And we're like, why are you demoing this on 30 units? We have review copies.
Right.
What's wrong with you?
Was it not the Mario Tennis on Wii U? No.
At last E3, the big shadow drop, there was Fortnite came out at E3.
Yes, I can go play this at home.
Yeah, and then there was the other free one, the Paladins.
Paladins, yeah.
That came out. That was another free one that came out like a week. That was a week after E3, I believe.
Their E3 presence last year was goofy. But like there was a year not too long ago that basically they had a big game coming out and it was the focus of their booth, and it's like it comes out in a week. Like just chill out. Show me something else. That were probably, I mean, it could come out like right after E3. I've seen them referred to June as spring before. Yeah. There's seasons are meaningless in PR.
Yeah,
it's spring somewhere. We didn't say what region of spring it was. Well, actually, it's not necessarily spring somewhere. Shut up, spring somewhere.
Now, those 3 games that we've just mentioned, those are really the only ones Animal Crossing's next year. Fuck, or supposedly, right? To me, Animal Crossing is the game they're going to blow out at E3, and it's going to come out in the fall, maybe October or something like that, and then hopefully Pokemon to follow. I guess we'll find out.
Oh, they would never do a blowout with the Fire Emblem, but it could still be there.
No, it could be.
They have a Fire Emblem event in Japan in January. They're not going to show 3 houses there because there's no international presence at that event. But they're also not going to blow it out at E3 because it's never going to get the coverage it needs there.
It's still Fire Emblem.
But it can still be shown there. But I think you're right. Unless Animal Crossing comes way forward, or unless they've got another Mario or Zelda game ready to go, Animal Crossing is going to take that slot. Now, they could have those things.
I imagine we're going to find out in January, I think. Even if we don't get solid dates, if we still get windows, just the amount of coverage that Fire Emblem or Animal Crossing gets in January should kind of tell us which one's going to come first.
Well, if Animal Crossing gets a lot of coverage, to the point where it's it doesn't feel like they're gearing up to blow it out later.
Then,
exactly,
right.
That might mean that it's not what they plan to blow out at E3. That they may have something else they plan to show,
and they don't generally do Pokemon blowouts at E3s either, right?
No.
It's more of a Game Freak kind of does that on their own. So that'd be really interesting if somehow Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem were both pre-E3. What the hell would they show at E3? I'm just kind of spitballing here, but
there's no way for us. We just have to kind of watch what their next 2 announcement blocks have in them, and then we'll figure it out from there. I know we'll be wrong.
Looking forward to the predictions episode of RFN.
Life is meaningless.
Yeah, well, I guess for Switch, it's probably. Of what we know of, that's probably pretty much it. Anything else would be a surprise, or from something that maybe we haven't heard anything about. Really,
I'm sure there's a bunch of announced indie stuff that we're just not able to name right off. But
yeah. That's the other theme for Switch as well, is that in between all the big stuff, there have been good indie RPGs that have come out.
Yeah, for sure. The independent games or independently developed games that are coming to Switch are really some of the best games I've played this year. I feel like I remember Celeste and Grease. I'm going to remember those games more than some of the big games that we played this year. They're smaller and they're cheaper, but they're not lesser experiences. They can be just as memorable. So yeah, I'm looking forward to. James, you're right. The names might be escaping us. Might not be thinking about them, but Nintendo will remind us. There will be Nindies Directs next year that will tell us about RPGs that we don't know about. Chucklefish or the guys who do Stardew Valley. They've got a couple of other simulation type games that are in the works. Right? There's one that's it's like a Harry Potter kind of game. You're going to a wizard school or something like that. And I think they have another one in the works too.
I think they implied that they've sort of shelved work on those while they add the content they want to add to Stardew Valley.
Yes, you're right. I did read that too. Yeah. But they are exist. There. They do exist, right? So, yeah. I imagine, Stardew's done really well on Switch, so I have to imagine those games will eventually make their way over too.
So let's touch, though, on the other stuff that probably exists somewhere inside Nintendo's heart before we try to open it up to anything else.
Sure. What do you got?
We know Monolith Soft is making a game. They've said very little.
We've seen concept art of it, haven't we?
That's it.
Yeah. That's all.
That game is probably a hell of a ways out. We know that there is almost certainly something cooking beyond that there, because it's a different team. It's a new team, so they're probably making something else as well.
Right. So it's 2 things from Monolith.
There's a chance that maybe they're gonna port Xenoblade Chronicles X and actually end the goddamn game. That'd be really cool if the game had an ending. Wouldn't that be neat?
So it'll be Xenoblade Chronicles X and then an S at the end.
And they're going to make you replay the entire game to get the ending.
Xenoblade Chronicles X.
That's right.
Look, I will give you money. Just let me know how the story ends. No, you must replay it.
Yeah.
But SNT5, which we've talked about a couple times, it might rear its head for next year. We don't know.
Yeah, I think we should see it again. I think we should see it next year. I doubt it's coming. Yeah, I think we'll see full gameplay of it. I could even see a Japan launch at the end of next year, but they've been doing so many worldwide, so maybe not.
Until they actually list it in their upcoming games, I'm not so sure we're going to see much of it.
I think we might see it get re-announced.
Yeah,
which is
maybe add a subtitle or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's always the fun thing of like we've announced this game, and you're like, you already did, and like, yeah, well, don't look.
Not this year.
Hope you didn't forget about it. Yeah.
But I mean, there will be indie stuff that we're not thinking of. There will be some smaller stuff. There will be ports of games that you may not have played before. They just announced another Ys game. It's not coming to Switch because the company who actually makes it in Japan doesn't do the Switch port. The localizing publisher does the Switch port, and it's all weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this weirdness and these announcements right before they come out. Actually, there's a Tales of Vesperia is coming out.
Yes, that's right.
Yep.
January too. Yeah.
And it's the version that we never got in the West, with the other stuff added to it.
And that's coming everywhere same time,
Yep.
right? Like Switch, PS4, Xbox, all those places. Yeah. So again, there's another one, 2019, where all the platforms getting at the same time.
I played Tales of Vesperia. I really like it. I don't know if I want to play it again. It feels very 2008 to me, but at the same time, like, yeah. Tales Studio is known to be working on a Tales game. They were supposed to announce it already by their own admission.
Right, a completely new one, right? Not a port or something.
Presumably that will show up on Switch. Because those games don't really push too hard.
No.
So yeah, I mean, there's some stuff out there we just hasn't been announced yet that we know exists.
Mm-hmm. Do we know if the Bravely Default team is working on something? I know the Octopath team was kind of teasing it a little bit, with some of the art they did.
I mean, the Bravely Default team is kind
know.
of weird because it's not like just a fixed group of people, but I mean, Silicon Studio themselves. Right. I don't know what they're working on right now. Like they're of course the core of that team.
So we might see something from them at least announced next year. It's possible, right?
They did Terra Battle was the last thing they did, which is a mobile game. So they may be doing more of that.
Wasn't there rumors of a Lost Story 2?
If I didn't start them, I would be fine with a Lost Story 2.
You'll have to call the German retailer that put it up on their
I think
their
that's
website.
I think that's what I saw. But
they had a blurb at the bottom of it, something like we expect, like something about a rumor that this will be announced at the Video Game Awards in the United States. It was something asinine.
They would never announce the Last Story 2 at the VGAs.
Yeah. I know.
Fuck right off with that.
Yeah, like that would be. I haven't played the first one like I really want to, but that would be awesome.
We could see a port of the first one potentially too, right?
Could be, yeah.
That game would need a lot of work, just to be presentable. Because of course it's a Wii game.
Yeah. I was disappointed that didn't come to the Wii U, right? Because was it Pandora's Tower
did, Xenoblade did, but that one didn't.
But the third one, the infamous begging Reggie to bring them over games, that one Lost Story didn't come over, unfortunately.
And it's the second best one, and it's closer than you would think. It's
damn.
It's a neat game. Like I actually imported it, and I was very happy to play it. And that it did finally come out, and I was like, well, damn it.
I remember trying to grab one, a couple of years ago just to play on my Wii U, and you couldn't find them, or they were super expensive, and it must have been a super low print run, obviously, right? So it was the same thing with Xenoblade, right? I remember EB Games or GameStop was selling them for like $100.
So GameStop had the exclusive rights to sell them new, and what people suspected was happening was stores were just stores were opening their new copies and then selling them as used for over MSRP.
Of course. I still think they do
that.
Which is
super illegal, and B, pretty morally jacked up. But
par for the course.
I imported all three of those games, and then they all ultimately came out. And it's like, well, I'm not super upset that I imported these. I think I actually got a copy of Xenoblade for North America. I got it cheap.
Yeah. I actually never played it till the 3DS version. I still kind of wish. I know. I should go back and play the Wii version, but. Too many games.
But I mean, honestly, that's if let's say one of those games comes out next year, beyond one of the 4 or 5 games we sort of speculated out. That's still 3 pretty solid RPGs. 4 if you count Vesperia. Pretty solid RPGs.
Yeah,
and then
definitely.
1,000 Final Fantasy ports. Like that's a decent for RPG. I mean, that just speaking in Japanese RPG space, that's a fairly decent library.
Yeah, four big AAA RPGs in a year, all coming to Switch. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, we haven't. I don't know, when was the last time something like that happened to any platform?
I mean,
right?
for PlayStation 4, 3 times last year. But it's a start. It's certainly progress over Wii U. I think it's just going to take some time. And there is at least one RPG on Switch that has not been announced for it yet that will come out next year. I
would side with it there. I think that's definitely true.
And I mean, I guess the other part is that to expect one platform to kind of satisfy everything is kind of unrealistic.
I'm not sure. I think we're getting to the point now where the platforms are becoming relatively fungible. We may get to a spot where there really aren't that many exclusive games. It's really just a matter of somebody paid for this game not to come out for 6 months.
Yeah.
The whole situation with SNK 40th, I know why they say that it only came on Switch. I've heard it from the PR rep themselves. I still don't understand it. Now, granted, I also played those games, and I don't understand many of them, so sound decision-making isn't in play.
Is that game coming to other platforms, James, or that's just going to be Switch? Interesting.
It's very strange. But SNK Tag Heroines, which they were showing at the same time, is Switch PS4, but not Xbox.
Yeah.
Now, granted, that game would sell like radiation on it. Like this, we're just going to blast you with radiation every time you turn your Xbox on. Great.
Yeah, I mean, games like that, more Japan-centric or focused games not coming to Xbox, that's not a surprise. We've seen that before. So, yeah, it is.
Because if they ported to the Switch, you would think porting to the Xbox One for Tag Team Frenzy would be relatively straightforward, but they just didn't.
Yeah, I guess they just don't want to market it.
No purpose.
People buy it. Yeah. There's something about putting it out there and then no one buys, and it's like, oh, well, why the fuck did we do that?
It probably affects the value of the other platforms as well.
Yeah, that could be. David, I know we're already over 2:15 here. Do we want to talk about anything 2019 or beyond non-Nintendo stuff?
No, maybe we'll just finish up with, while I was lamenting what was going to be coming out on the Switch, my only thing about keeping stuff secret is that when I'm thinking of things that I'm excited for, like the things I'm excited for is Anthem from BioWare, so that's Steam.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Wasteland 3, which I guess is technically Microsoft now that they bought inXile. But
it's still coming
that'll
out
be
on
on Steam
stuff.
Yeah. Excited for Outer Worlds, which looks like Fallout Las Vegas in space.
That did
which
look
again
cool.
is a Microsoft now that they bought Obsidian. That's also PC. Cyberpunk 2077, which I'm not 100% sure it's 2019. I think if it comes out, it'll be the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't think it's 2019. Yeah. I think Cyberpunk is going to be a PS5, Xbox 2 kind of game. That's not next year.
Yeah, so I mean,
they're going to hold that to the launch of the next
actual
gen.
things closing. Like, I'm excited for Anthem. That's February 21st.
Yeah, me too. It's getting close.
So I mean that's kind of my beginning of the year exciting toy.
Yeah. The thing is, I wouldn't even want that on Switch because the Switch online infrastructure is so goddamn terrible that if you wanted to play Anthem with friends and try to figure out how to do that on Switch, it would be horrible, right? Like, I'm going to be playing it on PS4 with some buddies probably, and it's so much easier to get into games and communicate. Like, there's some of those big games, especially the multiplayer focused ones, where I don't even want them on Switch. Just because the way I would play that game most of the time would be so inferior on Switch, it wouldn't be worth it. Like, I'm happy to buy those games on PS4, right?
Well, and that's what they were built for anyway. Like, so that's where that game belongs. Like, that was never the kind of game Nintendo wanted on Switch. Like, we had that weird, pained comment from Reggie. What game was it? Why is it not on Switch? Somebody asked him. I can't remember what game.
Oh, this was recently.
I don't remember what game it was, but it was a game that
yeah.
It just made me think of the other one that's coming out for Switch in 2019. I don't know if you consider it an RPG or not because we don't probably know enough. Daemon X Machina.
I'm guessing it's
not an RPG. I don't think it's an action game.
But basically, he gave this.
Oh, was it Red Dead?
It was Red Dead. He gave this really political answer. Well, we'd love to have games like that around, but publishers make decisions for what makes best suits to their game. And many of these games were,
and then everyone writes about how Reggie said Red Dead's coming.
And many of these games were in development long before we had before we were on the market. It's like, well, all these things are true, but also this game isn't built to be on Switch.
No, it's like 100 gigabytes. Like they don't even have a cartridge for that yet.
Well, yeah, and basically it's not graphically built in physics engines and all the rendering stuff that's going on, all the environmental stuff. Like it's just the Switch isn't built for that kind of game.
No,
and that's fine. You don't have to be built for every kind of game. If you find a niche you can be successful in, then carry forward, my son. Be successful.
Yeah. Well, and that's I guess that's kind of where I'm at. Is that I've put together a decent enough PC to run a 4K game at decent enough settings. That's kind of supplemented the things in between the Switch games, I guess, for me.
There you go. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't necessarily have to have a one box that does everything. They all have their strong points. And we just kind of play the game where it makes most sense to play. Like I could have played Valkyria Chronicles 4 on my PS4. It would have looked better. It probably would have run a little bit better. But I mostly played it in my study, in my reading chair. And so that was the option the Switch presented me.
Yeah. And I mean, an example too is like a game like Wasteland 2, which came out on Switch. Like it just plays, it's just a better play on PC just by the nature of the kind of point and click.
Right.
Trying to fight the menus for a game like that.
Ark
it
Survival
can be
Evolved
done.
doesn't work on Switch.
Yeah.
Proven. You could go to Nintendo World Report to see the results.
Yeah, exactly. So,
like this is going to keep happening, right? There's going to more and more games are going to come out, as time goes on, where it the best thing to do is to play it here. Everyone has their own preferences. Like we just said, I could have played Undertale on PC years ago when it came out. My brother was begging me to play it. I'm like, and I tried it on PC and I couldn't get into it. Then I pick it up on Switch and I'm playing in bed and playing portably. Like, I couldn't put the game down, right? Like the Switch is going to be really good for certain games, and other ones, you're going to want to go elsewhere. And I'm not disappointed by that. I feel like that's just the reality of the situation. It's not like back in the day when you had a Super Nintendo or a Genesis and you were stuck with that. And if the game didn't come to your console, well, too bad. Or if a better one, you wanted the Blood and Mortal Kombat and you had Super Nintendo, well, too bad for you, right? Like that it was different back then when more people were a one box family or a one-box household. Now everyone has a PC, right? So you've at least got a PC and probably one of the consoles.
In the enthusiast space, that may be true, but I would say that, I know people who don't have computers at this point. They don't need it. They have a phone, and it's fair. Like, well, that's fine. I don't have a PC that can play anything beefy because I basically at some point in my life decided I'm on a computer all day at work programming. I'm not going to do that at home. And so I don't have that option. But I have a PS4 and an Xbox One because I'm that 1% of the market that's a lunatic. But I think we're going to get to a place where if you want games that the Switch can't handle, you're going to have a system that does have it. And it's just, we need to kind of just be okay with that. And those games will exist and go play them somewhere else. And then when you get the games you do want that do work on Switch and they make sense to play it there, play them there. And we don't know a lot about the Switch lineup coming up. We don't know a lot about RPGs. We said the same thing last year, and I think this year it wasn't completely a vacant lineup like some people make it out to be. For whatever goddamn reason, Super Mario Party sold a stupid number of units. But I think we're going to run the same playbook next year. I think we might have a little bit more beef in the lineup, like big core franchise games, just because of we didn't have them this year.
Yeah, it makes sense that a lot of things that maybe were originally slated to be 2018 have slipped to 2019 to make them better, right? Fire Emblem's a good example.
Or things that people were working on that launched in early 2017 and the primary development team had already come off by then to go, because they were done, and to ramp up another project, maybe starting to finish up. Like there's a give and take there of just like, it's going to be cyclical. I don't have any plans to play any RPGs on my PS4 right now, except for maybe the Yakuza games, which they are JRPGs. They just are. Like they have stat systems based on usage. They have items. They have equipment. They are JRPGs. They're just really specific. Like I'm gonna play Judge Eyes on PS4. Judge Eyes would never work on the Switch. It just couldn't handle it.
No, and they've been talking about this recently, right?
Judgment,
like,
as they're
people
calling it now.
are asking about Yakuza games on Switch. Like, why aren't the Yakuza games coming to Switch? And the developers are like, yeah, that's just not going to happen. Don't look forward to that.
Dragon Engine.
It's not the place to play those games, right?
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, if you like Yakuza games, get a PS4 or play them there. That's not a big deal, right? You'll get other things.
Yeah, so there's my JRPG on off Switch. So why don't we give one? I'm really excited for Judgment. I want to play that game. I still wish they kept the Judge Eyes though. That's a better name. It's a terrible name, but it's better.
Judge Eyes is a terrible name, but I love it.
It's so good.
Yeah. Is there something about the character's eyes or something about eyes in the game like that? That's why it was called Judge Eyes?
I think it's because it's all about being a detective and you have to kind of like do more analysis. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean
Like there's some special thing, like some special power with his eyes or something.
That team is engaged in nonsense on a regular basis. Don't look too hard.
Fair enough.
Well, Jordan, why don't you take us home with your most anticipated for 2019?
Sure. Yeah, it's really tough. I guess I'm kind of hoping Dragon Quest XI comes to Switch next year. I'm really looking forward to playing it. I've played all the Dragon Quest games before. I'm holding out, not playing on the PS4, and I do want to play the Switch version. We'll see if it comes with something new. I don't really care if it does. I just want to play it portably, frankly. Like you, I'm looking forward to Anthem a lot. Looking forward to playing multiplayer with the Anthem, and then Division 2 I'm looking forward to. It's tough. In terms of RPGs, I guess for Nintendo, Fire Emblem I'm definitely looking forward to the most. I love Fire Emblem games. This is the first one that is going to be on Switch. I imagine we'll get maybe another Shadows of Valentia kind of remake on Switch at some point too, maybe next year. But I'm really looking forward to Three Houses. We haven't seen a ton of it, so when that comes out, I'll be there day one, and maybe we'll talk about it on the Mage too. Fire Emblem was definitely my most anticipated Nintendo Switch RPG.
Alrighty, well, now that we're at 2.5 hours, I think it's a good time to.
It's time to stop.
Might as well just go to 4. We're so close to 4 hours.
No, I think we're good. Well, the one thing that we do know for sure is that if there's a Nintendo RPG, somebody from a Thirsty Mage podcast is probably going to be the one reviewing it. So make sure to check in on NintendoWorldReport.com and NWR TV for the reviews. We also have I've been reviewing non-Tendo stuff on the side as well. If you want to go to the Thirsty Mage YouTube channel, there's some Steam games. It's mostly Steam games. There's the odd Nintendo game there, but mostly Steam games there for now. Plus the Steam games that I've talked about, like Anthem and Outer Worlds, Wasteland 3, I'll be reviewing those on there as well. So if you want to subscribe there. And I want to thank James for coming in at the last second to help us out with some RPG talk. And you can hear him on our Radio Free Nintendo.
Yep.
Also I'm sure you'll be reviewing some RPG games, not Atelier.
No, I'm definitely not Atelier. No, when this comes out, I'll have dropped at least one more review. So, yay! I'm semi-retired from reviews versus my fully retired that I was for like 6 years.
And and if Jordan is as excited about Anthem as I am, I'm sure you'll be involved in the multiplayer showcase for that game. So.
Oh, we'll definitely be talking about Anthem and some of the other games coming next year to Switch or otherwise, right? I'm really looking forward to the January Direct. I think it's going to tell us a lot about what's coming next year, and I know, David, you were saying the uncertainty of it, and we're so invested in video games and Nintendo especially, and obviously I want to know too, but it's kind of fun not knowing, and then seeing the hype cycles for the Direct and people going nuts before and after and during. And yeah, I look forward to the Nintendo Directs so much now that, I kind of don't mind not knowing what's coming.
Well, I'm also the guy who gives out a list of what he wants for Christmas to his family, so I'm not exactly the waiting for the surprise guys.
Fair enough.
So, but no, I hear what you're saying. So yeah, I'm excited for the January Direct, and I guess we'll probably know a lot more by then what we can expect for 2019. So
for sure.
Well, again, I'd like to thank Jordan and James for joining us on this 2.5 hour look back and look ahead on the Switch. And in the meantime, make sure to check out Jordan's review for Greece on NintendoWorldReport.com as well for the.
Yeah, I also have a review for Firewatch as well, and I've got an Atari, I don't even know what the hell the name is, Atari Retro Collection, something like that. Atari Flashback Collection. I'll have a review up of that just before Christmas as well. So, look forward to those.
All right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, and we'll see everyone back in the new year.
Bye.
Sounds good. Have a good night.